How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing well. How are you this evening?
I'm well. And your mic sounds good. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Hey, Amy.
Good evening. Hear me okay?
I do.
Awesome, thank you. Will you co-host me so I can update the timer?
Hey, everybody.
How you doing?
Good. How's my sound? Okay.
It is.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. How you doing, Michael?
Keith, how are you doing?
I'm well.
And Ms. Harvey, how are you?
Good evening.
Let's hope so. Last business meeting before we recess.
How you doing, Judy?
Good. How are you, Markeith?
I'm well. And your mic sounds good. Thank you.
Excellent.
Hours of battery. Wow. Look at me.
How you doing, Ty?
How's it going?
Good. Hey, your mic sounds good.
Oh, I appreciate that. I love it when I sound good. Oh, look at Michael taking that call. Looks like a businessman. Hi, Amy.
Good evening.
I love that purple blazer. You're just popping off today.
You look like you've got kind of a summery kind of shirt under.
Yeah, I got my Hawaiian shirt on, and I was like, maybe I should throw a little jacket on top of it, so I'm not wearing just a Hawaiian shirt to a council meeting.
A little bit of both worlds, casual and formal.
That's what I'm saying. I want to play that Drake song, Passion Fruit, in the background every time I talk. Yeah. Passionate from miles away. You know that song, Michael? Oh, you don't know that song. I'll play it for you next time. Passionate from miles away.
How are you, Mary
Hope he
Jane?
sings it better than you do.
He's auto-tuned.
Hi, Markeith.
Hi, Mary Jane.
Hi, Ty. Did you get your t-shirt yesterday?
Well, actually, before Paris house on, I actually stole hers because mine wasn't on the desk, but we were the same size. So
We have some
she comes
extras.
asking, to say it got misplaced.
We'll find her one.
That's what I thought.
Mhm.
Michael, you're talking, but you're on mute.
I gotta pick mine up before Ty steals that one too.
I only need one.
Yeah.
Hello, what are we trying to pick up and steal? The hustle
I stole
fund?
Paris.
Ty is stealing t-shirts.
Okay, I like the hustle fund jacket. That's pretty good.
best VC in the world.
My goodness.
How are you, Mayor?
I'm well. How are you, Marky?
I'm well.
Good. Okay, sorry, my computer's being a booger. Hang on. I had a bonding experience with my printer today. I think I won, but now I got to go back through all the cartridges and try them again because it was trying to tell me that it was out of the yellow and I wasn't paying attention. So I tried everything but yellow because who the heck uses yellow? But then I remember you use it with blue to make green. I don't know. But not having a printed agenda is a little hard to run a meeting because I have to switch back and forth between the agenda screen and it. So yeah.
Yellow is a primary color.
I do know that. I've never played with the printer before. That's my husband's job, and he's still in Cabo.
Cabo.
That's where I got him back from late last night. Yes.
4 minutes.
All right, now I got to get my announcements. Sorry. Okay, I'll just put myself on mute.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, Markeith.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Hi, Paris.
Hey, Ty, miss
That-
you.
Bud, I miss you too.
Hey, Michael. Hey, Pam. Mary Jane in the house.
Got that sweater vibe on.
You wearing sweaters?
Well, it's cold with the AC on. I know it's ridiculous, right?
Dang, that is crazy.
No, not really.
I wish I had that problem.
You know, different people, different ideas of what the ideal temperature is.
65. I'm
Wearing a
joking.
sweater in this weather, soon you're going to be in Florida doing the early birds.
3 minutes.
They're not.
Something to
they're
look forward to.
What are they called? They're not the
Birds?
early birds.
In Florida, all
No
these-
birds.
No,
Snowbirds.
no.
Thanks,
In
Pam.
Florida, they have these dinners that the old people go to, the
At
early bird
4:30?
specials at the diners.
That's the
Like
bluebird
KMW
special.
kitchen.
No, it's the early bird special. You're thinking of the blue plate special.
Oh,
I'm
that's
gonna
right. All right, I'll give you
gander
that one.
Michael has more experience with the old people meals, so I'll let him have it.
Takes one to know one.
But you know, they do get
I'll be
good
hitting that
deals.
K&W kitchen. It'd be me and all the old people.
I love my Rotary Club. I have aging goals. I tell them that all the time.
Hello, Markeith. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'll be right back, folks.
Very well.
Wow, we got a lot of folks popping on. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Ty.
Jess looked like she about to tell us all a scary story.
It's about visiting your parents with your kids.
Yep.
Go ask people for the Wi-Fi.
Ty, tell me about the Pimento Cheese Festival.
Yo, I ate 35 pounds of pimento cheese. I had pimento cheese on fries. I had pimento cheese sandwich. I had pimento cheese on wings. I had fried pimento cheese. I had fried pimento cheese with pimento cheese on top.
What was the best?
That's a lot of pimento cheese.
Where was this, Ty?
Carrie, bro? They held this live
Carrie,
music.
okay.
I was jealous.
Cheese.
Yeah, I
That's the
really
Y'all should
was.
coolest thing that Carrie
has ever done.
That's probably a true statement.
Oh my, oh my.
No, not here in the building. I'm sorry.
All right, well, let's see how much progress we can make this evening with this agenda, folks. It's got a lot of items, but I'm hopeful we'll have a.
What you got hanging from your ear, Karen?
Zoom link should be on the town website.
These bats?
Earrings, elephants.
Elephant.
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Oh my.
Ten seconds.
Are we ready to go? All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Chapel Hill Town Council meeting on June 15th. This is the final regular meeting before we break for the summer. We do have a special meeting coming up, but there are 5 items up for discussion, beginning with 3 public hearings. The first relates to a proposal from Fifth Third Bank at 1800 Fordham Boulevard, and the other 2 relate to proposed modifications to the Gimgul Castle and a mixed-use apartment building off 101 East Rosemary. And then the final 2 items will be concept plans this evening. The first is for Hughes Street in the Gateway area, and the second is for the proposed Barbie Chapel Apartments. We'll also be making appointments to 5 boards this evening, and those names will be announced at the end of the meeting. We are excited to have you join us by Zoom this evening because public input is really important to us. We want to hear from you. If you wish to speak this evening, you can use the raise hand function on Zoom or the *9 on your phone, and we'll call you in to speak with us and share your whatever you'd like to share with us. So we got that. And then with keeping with the laws on virtual meetings, we will have a virtual roll call. Let's mute Ernest there. Okay. And we will do that first and get started. So Mayor Pro Tem Stegman.
Here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Barry. Everyone's moving
Here.
on. Get popping for me. Councilmember Wynn.
Here.
Councilmember Miller Fushi.
Here.
Councilmember Parker,
Here.
Councilmember Ryan,
Here.
Councilmember Searing,
Here.
and the mayor is also here. Thank you very much. Okay, I do have a few announcements, not many. Juneteenth this weekend, Chapel Hill and Carver are hosting a joint Juneteenth celebration at the Hargrave Center. The event begins at 2 p.m. and lasts until 6 p.m. There'll be live performances, food trucks, kid activities, and more. We hope everyone will come out and be part of this community celebration. And then, as you know, the town has declared Juneteenth a holiday for town employees. So Juneteenth, Monday will be the observed holiday since the 19th falls on the weekend. So we do have a couple of events still going on Monday. One is the naming of the transit facility for the Lees. This is by invitation only. We're still working with small spaces and areas right now, but we're so excited to be naming the transit center after the Lees, who were instrumental in getting our transit system established and to be one of the best transit systems in the state and the second largest fare-free transit system in the country, I believe. So very, very excited about this event. And then next week, we'll have a special council work session on Tuesday, the 21st from 4:30 to 6:30. It'll be the kickoff for our complete community townwide planning and visionary process. And we'll be joined by Jennifer Keesmatt and Jennifer Hurley, the consulting team, who are tasked with helping lead this effort. It's a virtual meeting and the public is encouraged to come. Okay, so we have that going on. Are there any other announcements? It is the wind down of the season here. Okay, I'll have a few things at the end, but before we get to the very end, I do want to say thank you to our staff. They have been incredible again this season. It is always busy in the town of Chapel Hill, but we've had added things with our planning process, with all the development proposals that have come forward. And if we've had just a lot going on and our staff has risen to the challenge. So we're very grateful, but also want to encourage them to take their time off and really disconnect and encourage everyone to let them disconnect for some of these summer weeks as they've gained up time to do so. But because they've been flexible, because they've helped work with us, we've gotten a lot accomplished this season, and we will continue moving forward. And we hope Manager Jones will share the appreciation with everyone on our staff. We've just, between the dealings with COVID and everything else, they've just done an incredible, incredible job again.
Mayor, thank you for your kind words. We will certainly pass that along to the staff. We've really appreciated this very busy council season. And as you said, we've gotten a lot done and we're very, very proud of that. And thank you to the council for a great season as well.
Yeah, great. I will say that Food for the Summer is kicking off, Food for Students, and it will start on the 21st. And we encourage volunteers. We need volunteers, and you can go to the website and sign up. We're very excited about the partnerships that have developed to help feed our children in our community and to help with some engagement opportunities. And we're still working towards more summer camp options for those children. So as we work forward together, please join in. We appreciate that. All right. This brings us to public comment and petitions on items not on the agenda this evening. If you're here and wish to speak on something that's not on our agenda this evening, we would welcome your comments at this time. Ms. Stegman, you see anybody doing the raised hands?
No, sure don't.
Okay, all right, well, great. Maybe they will do so when we get to the items they're interested in, so we'll have that. Okay. We do have a rather long consent agenda, which usually happens this time of year. And I applaud the staff for working towards getting some things going and keeping them going during the summer by putting some flexibility in some of these items for determination. So how say we on the consent agenda?
Remove the consent agenda.
Second.
Who seconded it? I got Jess.
Camille.
Oh, okay.
Second.
Okay, we've got two hands up. Okay. Motion by Ms. Anderson, second by Ms. Ryan. We'll take a roll call vote here. Ms. Stegman.
Aye.
Ms. Berry.
Aye.
Mr. Nguyen.
Aye.
Ms. Miller-Fushi.
Aye.
Mr. Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Ryan.
Aye.
Mr. Steering.
Aye.
And I forgot Ms. Anderson.
Aye.
I don't know why I did that again. He popped when I was looking, and the mayor said, and Mr. Parker, did I get you? And the mayor says, aye. Sorry. It's hard when everyone's popping. I know you by alphabetical, and you're popping and my brain goes with you when you come. All right, great. Thank you very much. You have the upcoming public hearing items and the petition status list. I will tell you that the manager are meeting for petitions again in a couple of weeks. We try to do work over the summer to figure out how to close some of them out with answers to folks, and we will be working towards that, and we'll give you an update on some of those later in the summer. So first up on our agenda this evening is to close the evidentiary hearing and consider an application for a special use permit modification, Fifth Third Bank, 1800 Fordham Boulevard. Now, we do have to have all people involved in giving testimony sworn in. So, we have Amy Harvey with us to swear folks in. And I had a list, but I have to go back. If you want to call a bunch of them together, Amy, do you have that list?
So I'll just say for all the staff and the applicant team providing evidence on this item, if you'll turn on your video and please affirm that you agree that the evidence that you're about to provide is the truth to the best of your knowledge by saying your name. That would be great.
Judy Johnson.
Thank you.
Brian Smith.
Thank you.
Dana Baker.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
I'm here with Fifth Third, but as counsel.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Judy, you want to kick us off?
Certainly. Good evening. I'm Judy Johnson with our planning department. I have a brief presentation for this evening for the special use permit for Fifth Third Bank. I do want to take just a second to remind you that this is a special use permit. Approval of a special use permit is contingent on the council making each of these four findings of fact. They're paraphrased here, but it's maintain public health, safety, and welfare, comply with the ordinance regulations, maintain or enhance contiguous property or a public necessity, and certainly meets the goals of the comprehensive plan. So tonight, this is the tentative. We're expecting action this evening on the Fifth Third Bank. Just to orient you quickly to the site, it's at the location of the existing Hardee's that's there, which is on the adjacent to the Wegmans shopping grocery store. I guess that's the southeast corner of Fordham, US 15501, and Old Durham Sage Road. So our recommendation is that you close the evidentiary hearing and adopt Resolution 9, which would approve the application. As I said, that we had the public hearing back. It opened in May, and we're here this evening for council action. We have added one condition or one stipulation to the special use permit, and this is reflected on the screen there. It's number 4. This is trying to capture the concerns that we heard. We've worked with the applicant on the language of this, that we heard at the public hearing back in May, that there was concern about maintaining or the existing trees on site, and a little bit of concern about the buffer along 15501, and trying to balance that buffer with the concerns that the applicant has raised about safety, being a drive-through bank and money and that sort of thing. So just trying to bring some attention to that landscape improvements along that area. Very quickly, the property is zoned community commercial. They are proposing to demolish the existing structure and parking lot there and build a relatively small bank of 2,400 square feet with a ATM drive-through as well as a drive-in teller. They are asking for several modifications to regulations. We went through these in depth at the public hearing back in May. Briefly, the steep slopes, that we have a standard that you can reduce up to 25% of the steep slopes exceeding 25% in slope. And I know most of you are familiar with this site, that those slopes are man-made on the property. Our entrance drive, that asking for a modification to the landscape buffer on that to be able to meet the DOT standards for site distance triangles. We kind of have briefly talked about the drive-through screening and as well as the landscape buffer along their 15501 frontage, looking at more in mimicking what was done along the Wegmans, trying to build some consistency along that frontage. So that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here.
All right, council members, are there any clarifying questions? Okay, I will ask if there's anyone from the public who wants to give testimony. You would need to be sworn in if you're wishing to give testimony on this special use permit.
No one was signed up and there are no hands.
Okay, so I bring it back to council for council comments or statements of any kind. Ms. Ryan?
Yeah, just a quick comment. Thank you to staff and the applicant for working on that additional landscape language. I'm hoping that we can actually get a little bit more. I was really pleased to see how much impervious surface that you guys are taking out of the current site. So, you know, especially with mature trees, they provide much more of a visual into the site, and they're, I think that they're not incongruous with providing a safe site, but they help reduce our heat island effect. They provide shade. So anything you can do along those lines will be greatly appreciated.
Okay, if there's no other comments, do we have a motion to close the evidentiary hearing?
I move.
I
we
move.
close the-
It's been motioned by Mr. Parker, second by Ms. Berry, to close the evidentiary hearing. Are there any comments that haven't been shared before we close the hearing? Okay, roll call vote then, please. Ms. Stegman?
Aye.
Ms. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Nguyen?
Aye.
Ms. Miller-Fushi?
Aye.
Mr. Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Searing? And the mayor says aye as well. That's unanimous. And I agree with the comments Ms. Ryan made. We're pleased with that. Okay, then
I
we would
move
need,
R9.
Second.
it's been moved by Mr. Parker, second by Ms. Berry, that we move R9. All right, roll call vote then, please. Ms. Stegman?
Aye.
Ms. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Nguyen?
Aye.
Ms. Miller-Fushi?
Aye.
Mr. Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Searing?
Aye.
And the mayor says aye as well. Thank you very much for bringing this forward, and we look to the improvements at this site. All right, yay.
You.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item number 12, close the legislative hearing and consider an application for conditional zoning for the Gimghoul Castle located at 742 Gimghoul Road from residential 1 to office institutional conditional zoning district.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Anya Gran with the Planning Department. And as you just summarized, we're here for the conditional zoning for the Gimghoul Castle. As you'll recall, the Gimghoul Castle sits here just north of Raleigh Road. It's accessed off of Gimghoul Road and is adjacent to the Gimghoul Historic District, and then trails, I believe, lead over to the Greenwood neighborhood. Since the last meeting, we have been working with the applicant to make revisions to Ordinance A that further clarify the conditions of approval and reflect specific site conditions unique to this project. No changes have been made to the proposed addition or the requested modifications to regulations that were outlined in the application. As a reminder, here's where we are in the process. It is before you tonight for action. And so I can run through the existing conditions, the proposed site plan, and modifications to regulations slides if you wish. However, if there are no questions, the recommendation before you tonight is to close the legislative hearing, consider adopting Resolution A, the resolution of consistency and reasonableness, and consider enacting Ordinance A approving the conditional zoning district. Would you like me to go through the other slides?
I think we're good unless there's clarifying questions that need us to do so. Okay.
I'm also here and can answer questions.
Council members, are there any clarifying questions on this item which we heard last time? Okay, are there any members of the public wishing to give testimony on this item? Okay, I bring it back for council comments then, please.
I'll move we close the public hearing.
Second.
All right, so moved by Ms. Anderson, second by Ms. Stegman, that we close the evidentiary hearing. I I will say that I like bringing things into compliance with what they already are. So good move, because it definitely wasn't an R1 to begin with. So we will be ready. And I think this is, again, an improvement to this site. So we'll need a roll call vote for this. Ms. Stegman?
Aye.
Ms. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Nguyen?
Aye.
Ms. Miller-Fushi?
Aye.
Mr. Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Searing?
Aye.
And the mayor says aye as well. We need the next step, please.
Move resolution A, consistency.
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Ryan, second by Ms. Miller-Fushi. Any comments to this effect? All right, roll call vote then. Ms. Stegman?
Aye.
Ms. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Nguyen?
Aye.
Ms. Miller-Fushi?
Aye.
Mr. Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Searing?
Aye.
And the mayor says aye as well, unanimous.
I move ordinance A.
Second.
The movement by Ms. Ryan and second by Ms. Miller-Fushi for ordinance A. Any comments?
No.
Roll call vote then. Y'all are just moving through these things. Ms. Stegman?
Aye.
Ms. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Nguyen?
Aye.
Ms. Miller-Fushi?
Aye.
Mr. Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Searing?
Aye.
And the mayor says aye as well. Unanimous. Thank you for bringing this forward and look forward to the improvements.
We thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. Okay, continue item number 13, sorry. Continue the legislative hearing for conditional zoning application at 101 East Rosemary Street from Town Center 2 to Town Center 3 Conditional Zoning District. I will remind council that the applicant has asked that we're not taking a vote this evening. We will hear a presentation and then we will, they've asked for us to delay the vote until September 14th. So you can ask all the questions still that you wish to ask, but we will not be voting this evening. And we do have some public signed up to speak on this item. So with that being said, we welcome the comments from our staff and the developer at this point.
So good evening, I'm Judy Johnson again. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the project and I'm hoping you can see my screen. So as the mayor said, this is a continuation of the hearings that have been held and I think you all know where the site is. Just remind you that we have had this before you back in April, in May, and to this evening. And as the mayor said, this will come back on September 14th. So the recommendation is to bring it back. And I wanted to just touch a little bit on some updates since the May hearing. And I do believe the applicant will go into much greater discussion on these. I know they've been working on the affordable housing. We've had discussions about the street activation as well as the parking strategy plan. I want to draw your attention to the parking strategy plan. This is the one I'm going to focus on. We have enhanced condition number 6 in your packet or in the ordinance, trying to outline that the parking plan would need to address the needs of guests, employees, residents, and secure a long-term lease for up to 130 parking spaces and be looking at mitigating impacts on parking resources or the parking that we don't want this project to consume the existing or all of the parking that's available, and providing updates to the town manager on a regular interval. Quickly to summarize, they are proposing to rezone the property to Town Center 3. It is the site of the former PNC Bank and the surface parking lot. Its proposal is to construct a 7-story apartment with 150 units with no parking. Since the May hearing, our town's urban designer has been working with the development team and has talked through and worked through and just summarize some of his comments here. They were shared with you, I believe, yesterday or maybe it was earlier today. That talked about, he's worked with them about orientation of the building. I know we had talked at the last hearing about actually turning it like 180 degrees, and there's some issues with that. I believe the applicant will probably go into greater detail on that. They are focusing on the first floor activation. The commercial space has been relocated to the counter and looking at that commercial space as being some sort of amenity space, maybe a coffee lounge, if it were to serve food, it would be very limited food that you would not necessarily need a kitchen for. Continuing to working on that leasing amenity space, that would be the front door to the building with, I know the urban designer is talking about like a living room focus. And he's also commented on the building frontage along Rosemary and Columbia, and was suggesting that the alcoves that were being created there with the columns might provide opportunity for some tables and chairs. Also thinking about creating some transparency in that facade. He suggested maybe like roll-up windows or something to create a more engagement with the street. So the one modification they are asking for, we have discussed this in the past, is about that the setback height. It is allowed to be 44 feet. They are requesting 90 feet on all 4 elevations. So that concludes my presentation, and I would like to happy to answer any questions or turn it over to Joe Dye with the development team.
Let's hear from Joe Dye, and then we can address council clarifying questions.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Heminger. Thank you, Judy, for the presentation. With me tonight are Whitney St. Charles and Kristen Casper from the GRUB team. And I will share my screen here and try to keep this brief. Okay, so I won't retread a lot of what Judy presented. As you all are well aware, 101 East Rosemary is part of the larger redevelopment effort on East Rosemary Street. Does include, or we at least include in context, the West Rosemary Hotel. Judy covered the setback height variance, which is part of our conditional zoning request, and we've covered that with you all before. This is just showing the project in context, again, from an aerial view and with the heights relative to the other development around it. Again, we've shared that with you and discussed that in our previous meetings. And then just to keep it brief for tonight, what we heard last time and what we've done since we met with you last. So we heard about Rosemary Street activation. It was a discussion around the sidewalk width and how we can improve that and improve that pedestrian experience. And really focusing on the retail and commercial use. Can we get that on the corner of the building? We can talk about that in a minute. There was an ask to consider inverting the U shape. Could we turn that around, and what does that look like? And is it functional? Does that work for the building? The parking plan that Judy discussed in detail. We had a good conversation with the town staff about that. And I think the condition covers well what the expectation is. It sets forth a framework that we're comfortable with. We know what we need to do and what agreement we would enter into with the town around the parking strategy. And then lastly, affordability we know is important. That's just something we're going to simply need more time on to get to a plan we think is workable and acceptable for the town. So focusing on the things we did do, this is just a view of turning that building 180 degrees and facing that courtyard out on the Columbia Street. Creates a lot of difficulties. One, and we workshopped this with Brian Peterson and staff as well, and that's some of the comments that were provided to you by staff. It creates trouble around the courtyard in terms of its elevation and grading, though it breaks down that orientation to the street. And here in the next view, something that was concerning to us, it puts a lot of the units on that long end of the building or long edge of the building facing the parking deck, which is a real hardship for us and certainly not a great experience for residents of this community if we were to turn that 180 degrees. But it's easier to show. One thing to talk about conceptually, something we did take to heart and study, and we looked at that, and we think we started with a workshop with staff on the original design of this building, and we think adhering to that design is the best fit for this particular site. So this slide, I think, summarizes some of the other items that we talked about. We'd love to walk you through tonight. So starting with the streetscape, we've widened that sidewalk. We pushed these columns back an additional 3 feet. We worked with the team on the structure to push that against the facade of the building to broaden that sidewalk area. It's hard to read this slide, I understand, but that's about 14 foot clear from the curb line to the face of the building. And you're getting a little over 7 feet of unimpeded walking area on the widest area of the sidewalk. It's a little over 9 feet to the facade, but 7 foot 9 inches, which is a very generous sidewalk coming from the deck to the corner of Columbia and Rosemary Street. And then similarly here on the Columbia Street, we have a 7 foot wide sidewalk as well. And as we talked before, that corner in architectural term is eroded, which means it's kind of inset from the corner. So it creates a really nice landing for pedestrians to come and go in different directions. And they have a comfortable spot to either hang out or cross the street and so forth. So how does then the building facade or building uses help activate the street and orient to the street? We heard a lot of feedback from council on getting that commercial space on the corner. We really challenged ourselves. I know we spent a lot of time talking about what our link standards are, what we try to achieve in a lot of our communities. And we heard loud and clear what council's desire was for the space and objectives were for the building. So we put the cycle center interior to the space where it's still accessible for residents. You can see that here in this location. We then put the leasing amenity closer to the parking deck. We actually think this is a great outcome that will function better. That is that initial experience for new residents or future residents, and certainly that's the everyday experience for our residents coming and going. So there is daily activity there. It makes sense to put it close to the parking deck where some of our residents may park. We have some future resident parking here. So it does help keep that space active, but in a more appropriate location. And most importantly, what we heard a lot of feedback from you all about was getting the commercial out here on the corner. It's a more normalized, I don't know if that's the right word, but it's 1,800 square feet, which is pretty typical for a retail space. So it's a good size in terms of square footage. We don't know what that future use is. I know we had some great input and some ideas about what those are. The real thought there is how do we activate that space so it doesn't sit empty? We would like it to be a viable commercial space. We'd like to provide that as part of our affordable strategy. So it's an attainable commercial space to support small businesses, startup businesses, MWBE businesses in downtown. And if there's in between times, how do we help activate that or integrate that with our lobby use, whether it's that coffee shop, a co-working type of orientation. I think Mr. Shearing had a great idea, and we thought about, is there a cycle tap room kind of experience that we could create. There's some creative ideas there. I don't know what that would be, but we've certainly provided for that active corner and that commercial space on the corner of this prominent location in downtown. This is just another view of the sidewalk. It's a little bit more readable. Again, this is how we reorganized to make that sidewalk wider on the Rosemary frontage. That's more consistent with the Columbia frontage, which we have a nice planting strip. That's a busier street. And then a generous sidewalk, and then keeping that sidewalk wider. So when you come from the parking deck headed east or west rather, once you cross this drive, you get a wider sidewalk experience as you approach the corner. So this is a simple rendering showing what those changes look like, where these columns are pushed back, what that sidewalk orientation looks like. And then here are just a couple of rendered views that help visualize that sidewalk experience. So there's that 7'9" sidewalk. There's the planting strip, the columns pushed back against the building. This is a view from the other direction, as if you were coming from the deck toward the corner of Rosemary and Columbia. Again, you can see that extra wide sidewalk, the consistent planting strip that is all the way down Rosemary Street. And this, granted, it's a rendering, but some of what the staff's comments were about how we might activate that with some tables and chairs, how do we treat the storefronts and so forth to really make that open and inviting and welcoming space. So that's a summary. We had some good dialogue about some of these design elements that are important elements of the building. We know affordability is important. And we shared with you, some of the challenges we're facing overall in project feasibility. So we want to use the summer recess for council to really give that some good thought and work and come back to you in September. We hope with some good solutions with the affordability strategy and frankly, working on feasibility of the project. So we're ready to move forward starting this fall. So that's it for me. I'm happy to talk about anything and everything you all want to talk about. I wanted to clear some of these items and really focus on some of the big items for the fall when we come back with you all.
Thank you for the presentation. All right, clarifying questions from council. Ms. Stegman.
Yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate the updates. Would I know the affordable housing piece is still a challenge you're working through. Would additional height or some kind of density bonus make that more feasible for you to have the affordable housing we're hoping for?
It's a great question, Ms. Stegman. We had staff ask us that same question. We are studying that. The initial indication, we had studied a similar outcome on another site that we have in Cary, and it doesn't. I don't think we'll get high enough to make that trade-off work. And I don't think the height would probably be 10 or more or 12 or more stories. It'd probably be too high for this corner. That would be up to you all, but the balance there, I don't think we will achieve. It's a great question, but we are studying it. The initial indication is that's not going to get us there entirely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Nguyen?
Karen asked or Councilmember Stegman asked my question.
Well, I'll put the question back out there for Joe, just so you have it. We appreciate you working with our staff again to try to resolve some of these issues and understanding where the market's going and everything. It makes it complicated, but we are also as a council interested in affordable office space. And then we're hopeful that you're considering that as well. Is that still on the consideration table, that part of the affordability component could be affordable commercial office space?
Yes, I'm thinking of it as just commercial space generally, Mayor Heminger, but it's that corner space. How do we promote that business opportunity downtown at an attainable, affordable rate? So that is part of how we're studying the affordability strategy.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then I know it's a minor technical, but would you consider some irrigation along your planting strip, since there's not much opportunity for the trees along the Rosemary side, particularly to get any water? You have them bricked in with just the grading, so to have some irrigation that's part of that plan would be helpful in survival of those trees.
Yes, I think you've asked that question in the past, and it's been quite a while. This actually came up when we discussed this different site, but the green space at the corner of Henderson and Rosemary related to 150. And the team there, it's a little bit different team, but the strategy is drip irrigation that helps establish those plants. So it's something that keeps them healthy and thriving. We want to use native species, of course, and things like that. And once they're established, we have little or no reliance on the irrigation, but there's that, first 2 to 5 years or whatever. So it's survivable. And you don't have dead trees and things like that. That's part of the thinking around it.
Can I just
maybe too much detail, but yes, it's a drip irrigation strategy that
I want to ask our staff to consider making that one of the stipulations, that there is survival mode for the plantings, especially however you wish to word it from the other one. Okay. All right, Ms. Miller-Fouché, you had your hand up.
I did, but it's more of a comment, not a question.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Mr. Parker?
Yeah, I think you may have mentioned it, but if memory serves, we are anticipating a BRT stop right by your building. How are you integrating with the BRT stop? Or am I mistaken as to exactly where it is?
I believe it's across the street. It's to my knowledge, it's across the street in lot 2. So, our integration is making sure it's easy to get over there to it.
Okay, and would you ever consider, making a contribution to the building of that BRT stop?
If I'm not mistaken, that came up, and I believe it's it's at least been broached by staff with us. I think it's part of the conditions. Judy may be able to answer that, but I think we talked about that and it was something we had agreed to previously. Thank you for bringing it back up, Michael. I'm sorry, Mr. Parker.
Michael is fine.
I need to look it up. I don't know.
If not, I mean, I know we're not asking for a final vote, but it is something that we have talked with staff about before, and we'll make sure is reflected in the conditions. We can work with you on that.
Okay, yeah, if you could maybe loop, just to make sure, loop back with our transit staff, make sure it's all squared away. I know they have some specific ideas and needs.
All right. Any other clarifying questions? All right, I will open this up to the public. If you wish to make a comment or to share your opinion with us, we'd like to hear it now. You can use the raise your hand function or the *9 to let us know that you'd like to be brought in to speak with us.
Matt Gloddick was signed up to speak.
Thank you.
That's all we got right now.
Sorry. Thank you, Council, for letting me speak today. I will keep this very brief since I know this is the start of a long meeting for you all. We, as the Chapel Hill Downtown Partnership, I'm Matt Gladick, the Executive Director. We don't promote or endorse any single project, but this is a project that meets a significant number of our priorities for downtown of increasing housing. So we appreciate the care and the effort that the council is taking in making sure this is a great project. This is the developer that the town has worked with extensively and has a great track record. And we hope that we can come to a compromise because these 130 units that'll bring, potentially 200 or more downtown residents for 12 months out of the year would be really important for our businesses and for our town culture in total. So we hope that we can get this approved in the summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think that's everyone.
Okay, I'll bring it back for council comments. Ms. Miller-Fish and then Ms. Anderson.
Just want to say this is a much needed project. We really want this project to work. We really want to get this corner right as well. And so I just want to say thank you for the renderings that you provided. You heard us, you listened, and you took those considerations into account, and I see it in this new presentation. I understand the challenges of the flipping of the courtyard with that U. I would not want to be facing a parking deck either. So that really resonates with me. I'm also interested in hearing about height increase and what that could potentially do in terms of numbers for getting us where we need to be for affordable housing. It's important that as we're building our downtown, that it's inclusive of affordable housing. So our downtown does not become a space and place that is not attainable for all of our community members. And so it's really important for me to stress that we really try to reach some sort of way of getting that done. And I'm really happy to hear about the possibility of affordable rental space as well. That's also important. So thank you.
Okay, Ms. Anderson, followed by Ms. Stegman.
Yeah, thank you. I think I certainly agree that we need the affordability portion sorted out, and I'm glad that you're going to have some time to do that. It sounds like I think I really was hoping that we would get to a place where the downtown hotel had gotten, where it didn't start out feeling all that great, and then it was really an exciting project. And I still think this project is not there. I think this is our downtown is small and it's narrow, and so we just have a really small margin here. I think housing is a great use down here. I like that the corner is now a bit more activated, but I think really thinking about the urban design and the public realm and what it's going to feel like to be down there, it still needs work. So I'm hoping that can be something that continues to be refined. I really don't particularly, I think the uses are fine. I just think that how this fits in or how this makes its mark downtown doesn't feel there yet. But I do appreciate that you're continuing to work on the affordability piece. I mean, I think another thing that we've kind of broached before is this idea of what do the residents need, but also what does the downtown need, and how do those things play together? And so given that you're not flipping the U, but if you're still doing the pool and these other things, I think that's really encroaching on how it feels on that corner and for people who are going to be on the street. But I really hope that it can be a great project, because I think it has potential, and I think we need the folks downtown. I think we need people living downtown. So I like the concept of the project. I just think the design still feels like we're taking a model that has been done other places and trying to stuff it downtown, and it still doesn't feel like it's working to me.
Okay. Ms. Ryan?
Was Karen? I think you had.
Oh,
Karen
I'm
looking up.
sorry, Ms. Stegman. Yes, no, go ahead, Ms. Stegman. No, that's the way it's supposed to go. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to bounce back between screens. I'm sorry.
That's okay, no problem. Yeah, I'll be quick. I just I appreciate the changes that you've made, and I think it's definitely getting there. I wanted to say that I also am very supportive of this project moving forward. I want it to work. As we've talked about, we want more people living downtown. And I appreciate that. I know there's questions, or there's been some concern about parking and why we're asking about parking. I really appreciate that. What I'm hoping is that the plan that you start with will be a plan that can be flexible as you go. I think the concern, I know we love the idea of just people not having cars and living downtown. I don't think we're there yet. I think some people can make that work, and I think it'll be a great option for those people, but we also don't want people who are still relying on cars to, park them in North Side and that kind of thing. So I appreciate that you're starting with an amount of parking that ideally we wouldn't need, but maybe hopefully that can be reduced as you go forward. And I like the idea of, being creative around the affordable housing, if it's a combination of affordable rentals and commercial or retail space. I think that's workable for sure. Yeah, that's pretty much all I want to say. I appreciate the work you've done on it since we last saw it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ryan.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll echo the statements that I very much want more 12-month housing downtown. I think this is a perfect location for apartments. So I'm good with that part of the program. Having private amenities like a courtyard pool in a small urban downtown is still a problem for me. I get why that's a model that works in lots of places, but I think that space downtown needs to be public space. I know you explored turning the building. Currently you do have apartments facing the parking deck, correct? I mean, there are apartments that face back there right now. So there's none. Okay, I've been looking at, we can talk about that later. I think that there are some that face back that way currently. So, and flipping it again, I know that there would be steps up. Steps are a tremendous urban public amenity. They provide seating space, they provide life and activation. So, but it's your design. So we'll stick with what you've got here. In terms of activation, I really don't think that we need to have apartments on the ground floor along Columbia Street. We really need that kind of retail. And whether it starts out as, kind of a more affordable retail as part of the affordability component of this, I think that would be fine. And then eventually transitions to market rate as the downtown gets bigger and busier. I think that would be fine. I was really happy to see that you had moved the cycle center. I think that was a good choice. I'm glad that you have commercial on that corner. Still, the leasing, I know that it's the kind of the front door for your tenants, but it is not an activated public space in the sense that we're kind of trying to talk about to get it activated downtown. I'm happy to see that the sidewalks have gotten a little better. I don't think 7 feet is wide for a major downtown sidewalk if that's the clear space. And the diagrams you showed us saw tables and chairs in there, which looks like that's going to chew into that space as well. I have friends who are visually impaired, and it's very difficult for them to maneuver in a busy downtown place in that width. If you have somebody using a cane, walking with a companion, and you have people coming in the opposite direction, it's just not enough space. We recently saw during the pandemic, as we took over more space on Franklin Street and into the parking areas, just how much benefit there was to our downtown from increasing those people spaces. So I really hope that there's something, as you're thinking this summer, if there's ways we can get more of that downtown sidewalk and realm and get that improved. So yeah, thank you for being willing to make changes. I agree that affordable units should be here if that's possible. We need affordability downtown. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes back in the fall. Thank you.
Mr. Searing, then Mr. Parker.
Just very quickly, I appreciate the changes. I think the retail looks much better from my perspective and the concerns I raised last time. Generally looking good. Look forward to more discussion in the fall. Appreciate you listening to us and working hard to try and incorporate some of our suggestions. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Parker.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Again, housing, I think this is, housing is important downtown. So I think the nature of the housing, making sure it's not student housing is all to the good. I think that I appreciate the work you've done on the building. I think you've made a lot of progress, and I appreciate your taking the time and the effort and the money to do so. A couple of thoughts there. I still think the leasing and the amenity spaces on the large side, and think about maybe just redistributing the space further to create a little bit more commercial space, whether that would be, affordable rent or affordable commercial space or some other kind. Following up on Ms. Ryan's suggestion about, perhaps I understand both, the current environment for, retail or commercial spaces downtown, and you've sort of got to make your project pencil out, and I understand that's why you're putting apartments at the first floor on Columbia Street, but perhaps they could be designed in a way that they could be easily converted down the road, five or more years down the road, as things pick up into retail spaces. Once we've created more people living downtown, once downtown is doing better, and have spaces that can be converted to commercial spaces down the road. I think we had a similar approach at the Aura development, if my memory serves correctly. So I think if you can build more flexibility into your design so that down the road you can make some changes that would respond to what I hope will be, a growing and more reinvigorated downtown. So if you can think about that, that might be something worth looking into. And then, of course, as everybody said, one way or another, we've got to get affordability here. We as a council have worked far too hard to, get it in other developments, not to have it here. So I'm hopeful that, you and your team will be able to be really creative and bring something really good back to us in the fall. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Berry.
Thank you. Wow, a lot of changes. Thank you for being responsive, for hearing and attempting to give us something from all 9 of us, the input that you got. And I want to say that I appreciate knowing that this is not the final offer that you're giving us. And I do want to repeat and underscore the need for and the willingness on our part to be creative with how we look at achieving what we'd like. And one of my priorities, or the priority, I should say, is affordable housing. So I'm looking forward to discussions and to hearing what you come up with. But I really appreciate these attempts, because they're not small, what you attempted to respond with here, these modifications that you've made. And I appreciate wide sidewalks. I am curious though, and I'm going to have to do some research about how wide the sidewalks are elsewhere in this area. Do they really match up? I want to make sure that we are being, I appreciate wide sidewalks and I can tell the difference downtown. I also want us to be as consistent as possible. So if we're asking that of you, what are our plans for others? Or if we already have that from others, then definitely we would like to be consistent with that. So thank you is what I want to say mostly.
Okay. I guess I'll wrap us up here. Again, I think you've heard the thank yous for continuing to work on this project. I know that Brian Peterson had a few more suggestions that we're hoping you'll take a second pass at to see if we can help. But this really is an important corner downtown. And we've got to get it right. And I know that you're working towards that as well. As the same time, construction costs have gone absolutely out of control. And so it's affecting a lot of things. It's not just your project, it's affecting a lot of the entire market across the United States, but especially in downtowns where it's harder and more expensive to build. We do need permanent housing, 12-month housing, as you heard. We do need commercial opportunities. We need wide sidewalks to accommodate people coming out of that parking garage and going to that major corner. And we're looking for opportunities to partner with you on that affordability component with commercial as well, because we lack that in our downtown as another component. I do think there's a way to squeeze some more commercial. I like the flexibility component. I think it's harder for people who are going to want to live right along Columbia Street on the first floor. I think that's going to be unusual, but I understand. I do like the stoop effect better than just a straight wall though. So I appreciate that. So with that being said, are you looking for any other information from us or feedback to help you before you come back on the 14th? Or have you feel like you've heard enough to let you continue doing your work to get us closer to a project that we're all excited about?
Thank you. Thank you all for the thoughtful comments and feedback. We really appreciate that. Mayor Hemming, here to answer your question, I feel like we've gotten continue to get a lot of good feedback. We know what we're doing this summer. We've got a list to work on. I mean, affordability, we hear loud and clear, is a very important component of this. And we have to find a strategy that works for you and that we can deliver in this project downtown.
Okay, council members, if there's no further comments, I will need a motion to continue the public hearing to September 14th.
So
I'd like to move.
Okay, well, Mr. Parker got it first, and then Ms. Berry will be the second on this one. Any comments or things that haven't been shared so far? Okay, the motion is to continue this public hearing to September 14th. Ms. Stegman?
Aye.
Ms. Berry?
Aye.
Ms. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Nguyen?
Aye.
I'm sorry. I just looked up the boxes again. They popped just as I was calling, and that's what happens. Okay. Ms. Miller-Freshee?
Aye.
Mr. Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Searing?
Aye.
And the mayor says aye as well. Thank you, and we'll see you back on September 14th.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
All right. All right. That brings us to item number 14, concept plan review for the Hughes Street residential.
And good evening again. I'm Judy Johnson with our planning department. Going to have a very brief presentation on the Hughes Street concept plan. You can see it's the dot is indicating where it is. Old Chapel Hill Road to the north, just to the west of Pope Road. You can see on the map I-40 is just to the east of that. The colored line running down here, that is the extent of our city limits. Our town limits extend to that point. And I don't know if you can tell on your screen, but there's a brief change in the color. The about right here is the county line. Properties on this side are in Durham County. Properties on this side properties on the left side are in Orange County. Properties on the east of this area here are in Durham County, although it is within our city limits and within our planning jurisdiction. So just orient you a bit to the site as we typically do in our concept plans, looking to transmit comments to the applicant. I did want to bring your attention to the other projects going on in this area. I know you're familiar with these. We've talked to you about them a couple of times. So that this is the property that we're talking about tonight, the Hughes Street. The property just to the north of that is 5500 Old Durham Road. That project is actually before us as a conditional zoning. Staff is under review on that one. And just to the west of that is the White Oak concept plan, and to the west of that is the Gateway concept plan. So we are working with the 4 projects here collaboratively. I know the applicants developer team here tonight have been involved in this. Our expectation is that we're laying out a plan over the next 2 months, basically to work through a lot of collaborative efforts and have actually the White Oak and the Gateway come forward to council in September as concept plans. And we haven't quite figured out all the details about how this project and the 5500 tie into that, but we've got our summer work ahead of us to figure that out. I just wanted to make sure that we all understood that this project, this East Chapel Hill planning project, is underway. And just briefly, we share this slide every time with concept plans. There's no decision this evening. Staff does not conduct a formal review. Our advisory boards have prepared or provided some preliminary feedback to you. And I'm going to be very brief on this. The property is about 10.5 acres. It's 6 parcels within Durham County. It's currently zoned residential 1. They're proposing approximately 180 multifamily units and are proposing an affordable housing component. So our advisory board comments, and I know you got a couple of these late this evening, have come from the Community Design Commission. They were supportive of the diverse housing mix, had some concern about the pedestrian circulation and looking at buffers to be increased, certainly along that edge with the existing neighborhood there. Discussion about stormwater, looking at its possibility for additional green space, and did reference the multiple projects going on in this area. Our Housing Advisory Board did just review this last evening. Their comments were that if homeownership should be for those at 80% AMI and rental for those at 60% AMI, and encourage the applicant to consider acceptance of housing vouchers. Our Stormwater Management Utility Advisory Board did also review this and suggested expanding the compactor area and remove a dumpster, that sort of thing. If you can create an amenity with the pond that's there, consider LID light impact development, considering like permeable pavement, encourage retention of the existing tree canopy, also expanding landscape buffers, and did support the underground stormwater detention. One of the things staff has been trying to point out is how this ties in with our future land use map. It is adjacent, but not in the North 15501 corridor. You can see it, the star just to the south of that. So drawing from what's in this area is showing the area there, but we do look at our future land use map for direction. It is, you can see the star on the map there. It is showing up in our low residential, which is generally 1 to 4 units per acre. And that actually concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions. And if not, I'll turn over to Dan Jewell, who will be presenting for the development team.
Let's have our applicant do the presentation and save our clarifying questions at the end.
Thank you, Judy. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Dan Jewell here with CJTPA at 111 West Main Street in Durham. Good to see you all again. With me this evening is Wendy Ramsden, one of the landscape architects in my office who you know, who's driving the slide presentation, and also our client, Mr. Ernie Brown. He's here. I will be giving the presentation, but the three of us are able to answer any questions that you have, and certainly we're looking forward to your input. First slide, Wendy. We can slide past this. Judy already explained where the site is. Here's a good aerial view of what it looks like today. So this is that southwest corner of Old Chapel Hill Road and Pope Road. You can see it's an assemblage of parcels characterized by Hugh Street, which is a public street coming in off Old Chapel Hill Road. And there's an old pond, probably a farm pond, that's green in this photo at the bottom edge. There are 13 small houses on the property right now, and the site is generally wooded. Next slide, please, Wendy. Again, Judy showed this slide. This just to show you, this is not in the focus area, but is directly adjacent to the focus area, and we think this site offers some opportunity for what we're proposing here. Next slide, Wendy. What I would like to say as a preface, as Judy said, we enthusiastically signed on to the joint discussion with the other proposed developments in the area as soon as Colleen and Judy reached out to us about that. We've already had one meeting. We look forward to additional meetings to see how all of these projects can talk to each other to create a better whole for the town of Chapel Hill. So the proposal before you, and again, this is conceptual, as you know, and we appreciate your time tonight, even though we know the project will move a little more slowly as we get the coordination with the town and the other developers. But we wanted to get your early input on the direction we're going, so that as we do work through the summer with planning staff and those other developers, we've got a better idea of where we should be going with this. So we appreciate your time tonight and giving us that input. So the big thing we're trying to do here is a mixed residential project. So we have a series of unit types that we're proposing on here. First, in the middle is a multifamily apartment project of 4 stories. That would be or 5 stories, I think, in some areas. This would be rental multifamily. We've centered it toward the center of the site, so it's farther away from the road. The brown buildings that you see closer to Pope Road and Old Chapel Hill Road, those are for sale townhouses. They would be 4 stories tall. And they would have townhouses over the top of townhouses, and then on the lower level of the page, those red units, those are also for sale townhouses. And just to let you know, what we're proposing is the 3-story units would actually be stacked. They would be stacked so that the lower level, the lower floor, could actually be set up as part of your main home. It could be set up as an ADU, say a granny flat, or another small unit that could be rented out or sold and provide some supplemental income for the main owner of those buildings. But again, all of these townhouses would be for sale units. The other housing type we're proposing, you can see around the pond there. And again, I failed to mention this slide is flipped 90 degrees counterclockwise. So Old Chapel Hill Road is to the left of the page, Pope Road is to the top of the page. So we would anticipate rebuilding that existing pond, which is pretty well eutrophied over the years. And we envision cottages being placed around these. These would be small little detached houses that we see as being an obtainable housing, especially for seniors or older people, to take advantage of the pond. You can see we've oriented this around a large green space in the middle, which would include a club and amenity area, which we see could also have spaces for folks in this community to use, such as co-working, a secondary kitchen, even some additional bedrooms, things of that nature. That would allow us to keep some of the units a little smaller to hopefully control the cost of those. There'd be a pool, there'd be a lot of open play area. And an interesting concept that we're proposing also is to have a series of small buildings, maybe pre-manufactured buildings, that sort of thing, that would provide space for pop-up community kitchens, small entrepreneurial spaces, that sort of thing. So we're really trying to create a mixed residential and small business incubator type community. Fully half of the parking would be underneath the buildings. Right now we're parking at about 1.6 per unit. We would be looking at doing underground stormwater management, and we'll go to that next slide, Wendy. Thank you. This is important because if you remember, about 10 months ago, we brought the concept plan before you for 5500 Old Chapel Hill Road. So this shows that proposal, which is across Old Chapel Hill Road from this site. We appreciated all your input on that. I think we've incorporated pretty much everything you've asked us for. Just to let you know, we did submit already a conditional zoning application for this a couple months ago, but again, we agreed to put that on hold while we work with the other developers on this. One of the things that you asked for, though, on this that was challenging to incorporate, just because of all that green space you see on the northern side, which is mostly resource conservation district, heavily wooded, was missing middle housing. So our client Ernie looked around, and that was the main impetus for him getting control of this property across Old Chapel Hill Road and being able to create over 100 for sale missing middle housing units. Next slide, please, Wendy. These just give you some examples of the housing types. These are not designs. These are some precedent images, but show you what we have in mind. On the top, the stacked townhouses. Below would be some 4-story product. The goal would be that the lower level of these units would be sunk about halfway below grade to make them appear smaller. You see that done a lot in the Back Bay area, Boston, neighborhoods in Brooklyn. I've seen them in Montreal and Toronto. And then the cottage units, again, this isn't necessarily designed, but they're intended to be small, detached, and have everybody be able to enjoy the view of the pond and the water, and everybody would enjoy the amenities in the project. Next slide, please, Wendy. So these are the goals that we think we've been able to achieve here to conform with the town's 2021 housing report. One would be that jobs drive housing. Location of housing options will give people options to continue living in Chapel Hill after they move beyond renting, no matter where they work. There's very little variety in what has been built. We're doing townhomes, apartments, and cottages all on one community. There are many needs that are going unmet. So we are targeting young professionals, couples, young families, empty nesters, and seniors. And again, the opportunity for those stacked townhouses to have an ADU on the lower level for parents or people who need more care than they can if they are living by themselves. And then fourth, finally, housing production needs to increase. So we're proposing 114 for sale units and 150 rental units to serve the missing middle. Next slide, Wendy. These are just some precedent images of what we have in mind potentially for that gathering space in the middle, the pop-up. I think many of you are probably familiar with the box yard out in RTP. We wouldn't be looking at something quite as dense or paved as that. But the one in the upper side is an example of a lower intensity one in Covington, Kentucky, where Ernie has been doing some work of late. Next slide, please, Wendy. So we've been to all of the advisory boards at this point. A couple of things that we'd like to point out. The affordable units will be available at the same time as all of the other units. Our affordable units may be different in form. For example, cottages will be less expensive due to size, and we all know that square footage equals cost when it comes to providing housing. I already touched on the ADUs. The amenities, as I said, will be designed such that they can allow us to do some smaller units because people will have the ability to do things in those amenities like co-working, community kitchens, co-working space, things of that nature. One of the things that we're really interested in is providing e-bikes. So provide on-site e-bike repair. And we're even thinking about providing e-bikes to some of the residents, again, to further reduce the dependence on car. Fitness facility, common space in the central building. And we're actually working with a Chapel Hill based group, East Coast Electric Speed Shop, to look into this e-bike availability. And then Wendy, I think we can go to the final slide and wrap a little bit. So just in summary, as we wrap up, the current zoning is R1. We're proposing, we think, conditional zoning O&I 3, but we certainly want to work with the staff and see what zoning might be the best fit for this project. We're looking at a total of 264 units, a mix of rental and for sale. Our building layout is to put the lower density development adjacent to the edges, particularly to stay away from Pope Road. We know there's a good amount of existing vegetation along Pope, and our goal is to maintain and supplement and move those buildings a little farther away from the street. Again, the cottage units, the underbuilding parking, the underground stormwater management, central amenities, and we're also looking at providing common maintenance for not only the rental units, but the for sale units. If this project and 5500 Old Chapel Hill Road are ultimately approved and built, there's economies in scale of being able to manage and provide repairs and maintenance and replacements to all of the residents, either rental or for sale, at both of the communities right across the street from each other. And again, finally, our target market is working individuals, families looking for mid-range housing, empty nesters, seniors, healthcare employees, and Ernie is actually going so far as saying he's interested in giving preferred employee discounts for UNC and town employees, so those folks don't have to commute out of town as many of them do today. So we have been working with the affordable housing staff, and as you saw, we met with HAB last night. So we look forward to any comments that you might give us and comments from the community. And we also look forward to working with the staff and the other developers in the area on a more integrated, coordinated pattern of development over the summer. So thank you for your time. And Ernie and Wendy and I are happy to answer any questions you have in advance and look forward to your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll ask for clarifying comments only at this point from council members. Well, I'll ask one. Judy, I wrote down 180 units when you did your presentation, but that has changed.
Yeah, and often those numbers bobble quite a bit during this process. So
just want to make sure we're clear and update our document. Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Berry?
Thank you. Cottages, the cottages that you meant that could be for seniors. Just having listened to a story on NPR, seniors are being outbid like many others because of their restricted income. How are you going to ensure that seniors have access to this, have real access to those?
Yeah. Ernie, would you like to touch on that?
The only thing I can really say is just based on the design of them, it'd be more appealing to somebody that's probably a senior based on the layout. Most of them will probably be one bedrooms. So they're not really, won't be geared towards, you know, people with families or any or whatnot. That's mostly about it. It's just based on the design, and you know they're not really going to have backyards. They're actually conceptualized to have larger porches, And so, my theory was that they would have front porches overlooking the green space, facing all of the rest of the community to kind of be part of it. In projects, you basically amenitize sites and buildings based on what demographics you think will be best fit there. So that's really the only way I can kind of tell you is I think based on being kind of backed, surrounding the pond, mostly being 1-bedrooms, it's going to be mostly appealing to empty nesters.
Okay. Oh, okay. So that's different. The empty nesters, there are some of us on here, different than the seniors. There are also some of those on here. Then one other question, when you say make e-bikes available to the folks, what do you mean by that? How are you making those e-bikes available?
A couple of things. One, we'll have in every building, you always end up with like some funky space that's kind of dead property. I kind of perceive that as being like a secured spot where people can drop off for e-bike repairs. We plan on promoting the e-bikes with, especially during lease up and when people are moving in, to kind of help illustrate the benefits of, reasons to have e-bikes. The other thing is based on working with guys here locally, by buying them in bulk, a container at a time, which would be 50 at a time, I get some economies of scale in my purchase. So therefore I'm able to kind of actually use those as incentives for people, moving there, and incentivize them not to drive a car, but, use an e-bike instead.
So they'll be available for borrow, or they'll be available to purchase with your unit?
I'll either give it to them or they can purchase one. If somebody's in one of those people that they're on the fringe, but it's something that if I can illustrate, hey, you don't need your car, you can use this bike if you work downtown, if you work in a close proximity. I don't want to speak too much to it. It's more so that I'm just learning about this whole process and I'm really intrigued by it. But the more I learn about it, the more I really feel this is a great option to tie into, especially with areas like this, to where we're trying to find ways for people that work in Chapel Hill to live in Chapel Hill. With the speed limits the way they are, smaller roads, you get people to be able to zip around, the affordability of them. You don't use gas, very little electric that actually gets used. They go up to 25 miles. Well, they can go up faster than that. Most of them go about 25 miles an hour. You can ride them in the middle of the lane. So you're not even clogging up the bike lanes. It's just
right. I understand the benefits. My question was really clarifying when you say availability, what that means. I think you answered it. I think you're not quite there. You're not ready to tell us.
This is again, since it's conceptual, it's something that we're continuing to work through, but I feel like the individuals that are kind of be on the fringe of that affordability component, I would definitely be willing to, give them one of these e-bikes to help them be able to stretch their paychecks out further to make these living here more obtainable.
Thank you. Those are my questions. Appreciate it.
Mr. Nguyen, you had your hand up? Okay.
My question was answered.
Okay, great. Any other clarifying questions from council? Ms. Miller-Fushi?
Yeah, just a quick question. Do you have a roundabout square footage for the cottages?
They'll be under 1,000 square feet.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll just ask a question too. We'll be talking more about complete connectivity, but are you looking at connectivity along Pope Road and along, you're already getting the multimodal use, or the multi-path use path along Old Durham Chapel Hill Road, but Pope Road, right after the roundabout, the sidewalk stops, there's no bike lane. And if you're talking about e-bikes and those kinds of things, I know you talked about the buffering and not reducing it along Pope Road, but it makes a lot of sense for people who are going towards UNC to maybe go that route. Are you looking at that possibility as well?
We can, certainly we would anticipate sidewalks, but we'll work with staff and if they think an off-road multi-use path like we've been building everywhere is more appropriate, we can certainly look at that as well.
Okay. Well, we do have a couple of members of the public wishing to speak on this item. We'll hear from them and then bring it back for council comments. If you are wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand or use the *9 function on your phone. I see we have a few people raising their hands, so Ms. Stegman will help call you in. We appreciate you staying within the 3-minute limit, and we'd love to have you turn your camera on if you're willing so that we can see you and hear you. And we welcome your comments.
Right, I'll start with the list of folks signed up ahead of time. So we have Ed Harrison, followed by Susan Rice.
Welcome.
Okay, there I am. All right. Try to do 3 minutes. The key thing I want to emphasize here, and the mayor just brought it up, is Pope Road itself. One of the reasons I got on the council in the first place was because of Pope Road, because it's an unusual piece of concrete. It's not within any municipality, and any improvements that happen on it have to be done through development process. It can't get projects done. The Pope Road roundabout was something that came through a nearby development to start with, and then City of Durham actually put that in. That's the one at the top of Pope at Old Chapel Hill next to development. But except for the sidewalk that this applicant could put in and the bike lane, it's basically 22 feet wide of crooked concrete. I mean, it bends all around, and blind spots and everything else. So this is just one small piece of the development coming along here. We have 5 projects. If you want them to be shoppers in Chapel Hill at somewhere besides Wegmans, which is going to be nice and convenient, they will use Pope Road, and we'll have what happened now going on 30 years ago, when from 1992 to 1994, the traffic count on Pope Road doubled. And another doubling would be an impressive experience. I would still like, when I can ride my bike again, be one of the people who can ride a bike there. Would wish people could walk there, but you just have to be aware it's a road that has serious constraints on it for anything the municipality can do. I hope Chapel Hill could find some way to change its status. I don't know how you would do that. It's going to be a state road, and the right of way is outside Chapel Hill, thanks to the agreement with Durham from the 1980s that the former attorney negotiated. But the idea of as many car trips as could be coming out of these 5 proposals at the top of Pope Road is really worrisome to me. This is just the first. Ernie was good enough to meet with me. I think he got a picture from me of how worried some of us are. There are people who really want all those 5 defeated, including the 2 that. Okay, I've got my message, but I hope I've gotten that across. I'll be talking on a similar message later on for Barbie Chapel. But the key thing is Pope Road is outside your town limits, is outside Durham city limits, and there's very little that can be done for it. And so you have to be concerned about how many trips get put on it and where they're going. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Right, we've got Susan Rice, followed by Alicia Cawthorn.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I echo everything that Ed has said. I live here on Old Pope Road, and there's a lot of things that I don't understand, and I believe that maybe things have happened in the past, but the Hughes Road is actually Durham County. I realize that my research shows that taxes are collected for both Durham County, and it's shared with Chapel Hill. But what I have noticed is that the county, Durham County residents are not invited or informed about any of this, all of this development. It's very frightening. Mount Moriah Apartments is less than 0.2 miles away, and it is going to bring so many people in. The Ephesus Church apartments are going to bring a ton of people in. There's 1,500 apartments at Glen Lennox that's going to access 15501. There's just numerous. Elliott Road has 2 apartment complexes. There's just, I feel like this section of, because it's Durham County, that we are just being force-fed multiple people to come in. This apartment complex is going to bring in almost 1,000 people in 10 acres. That's just unreasonable. That little pond has a stream that feeds into Clark Lake with the stormwater issues that are going on. Why is that being ignored? We're paying with our taxes a monthly fee or a yearly fee for stormwater issues. And yet, because it's not advantageous to this development, it's being ignored. And that really disturbs me. But the bottom line is that these roads around here can't handle it. 40 is going to be worked on soon. In Orange County, 40 is going to be increased to 3 lanes. You have access to all of this. People are going to be using 15501 and 40, and it's going to be a nightmare in this area. So I'm just really unhappy with all of this development being forced on us, and those of us in right across the street and Durham County are being ignored, not considered, not being able to say anything, not being invited to give us our opinions. It's very disturbing to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy, can I just ask a clarifying question? Were people in this area mailed a postcard regardless of which county they were in? Or how did
That's
that
correct.
work?
We notify folks within property owners within 1,000 feet of the property.
Within 1,000 feet. It didn't matter which county you technically were in for that.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
I
So
didn't get one.
Ms. Rice, did you get a postcard? I'm just curious.
No, I did not. I did not get a postcard.
Okay, so maybe we can circle back and see that, but that within 1,000 feet of any project is our policy to notify people of things going on. So that's our policy. All right. Next up, please.
We have Alicia Cawthorn, followed by Joanna Pomerantz.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. First, I'd like to thank the council and the mayor for the opportunity to speak. I am a resident of Durham County, and I am off of Pope Road, so I must be within, more than within 1,000 feet, because I too did not get a notification. The first I heard of this, or any of these projects actually, was in the Nextdoor.com notification for a community probably 3 days ago. Was my first time of hearing any of these projects that's going on within a half a mile of my current residence. And I'm hoping this is still a housing situation versus an e-bike sales pitch. And I want to ask if the council, well, I know some of the parts that the council is aware of is all the projects that are currently going on within a mile of each other. I know most of them are in concept form. One of them is in Durham County, and it is the Farrington Townhouses, and they are currently clearing lot for that. And I believe it's 24 townhomes that are going in. And then if you cut back up to our area here at Pope and Old Chapel Hill, there are 4 or 5 projects going on, or concepts going on. And I just wanted to see if the council has done any research, or if the developer has done any research to find out if there is actually a need. Because within a 5-mile radius of our area, I believe there are probably 14 apartment complexes. There is one housing development or apartment, I believe it's apartment complex at the end of Farrington near 54 that is for 55 and older. So that that would probably be for the empty nesters and seniors alike. I know quite a few empty nesters, and I don't see a lot of e-bikes going on in the area. So I also wonder where all of these seniors and empty nesters are e-biking, because I'm unaware of them and I don't see the need for them. I am concerned that there are only 2 access points to this development. One is on Pope Road and then one is on Old Chapel Hill, both bottlenecking at the roundabout there, which is continually backed up if there's any kind of traffic, as sidewalks were just put in on Old Chapel Hill Road. So traffic on a given day was backed up past the 40 bridge. I currently live 3 miles from my job and am seeking, along with my husband and daughter, for a new residence, probably about 45 minutes away from my current job, just because I'm being pushed out by all this development. I think it's too fast, too much all at one time. And I ask the council and the mayor to consider slowing down some of this development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we have Joanna Pomerantz followed by Keith Shaw.
Welcome. Joanne, you're on mute.
Oh man, we just started that timer right
We'll
there,
give you a
didn't
few
we?
extra seconds. Go ahead.
All right, good. Operator error here. I'm trying to find.
We can hear you now.
You can hear me now. All right, I wrote something out because I wanted to be within the time. So hello, my name is Joanna Pomerantz. I was born and raised in Chapel Hill, and I've always been proud to say that and proud of this community. I was lucky to grow up in this town and be part of a community that fought mightily to hold on to its small town charm, protecting green space and tree canopy wherever it could. Sadly, that feel is slowly disappearing with every new large multi-development that goes up on every free corner we have left. The tree canopy is being destroyed. The traffic and appearance is that of a large city like Raleigh. And we are creating developments for residents who don't end up living here, but only staying for a little bit before they move on. All of these issues that are destroying the community that was once so vibrant. We are not a city, we are a town. And outside of our downtown area, we should not be building neighborhoods, or outside of our downtown area, we should be building neighborhoods that preserve green space. We should not be rezoning areas to make our outskirts look more like our downtown area. Further, with the new developments, we should be improving the roads around these developments, much like everybody else said, so that the new residents don't further add to the traffic issue we already have in Chapel Hill. At 264 units, the Hughes Street development project will add too much traffic to the roads of Pope and Old Chapel Hill. As mentioned, there are two entries to the Hughes development plan, one off Old Chapel Hill Road and the other off Pope Road, but there is no plan to add a turning lane to either road to address the traffic concerns in that area. This is a huge concern that needs to be addressed. Further, it is my understanding that these developments were all planned around the future light rail project, and the light rail project will not happen. Therefore, the community's plan for this area also need to be scaled back. Again, the public transportation to support all these developments will not be built. We therefore need to expect everybody living in these areas will be an additional car on the road. And it is unrealistic to think, as a developer suggested on last night's meeting, that people living in this area would opt for e-bike to ride to and from their destination instead of a car. The roads around the area are not set up for e-bikes. We all know that living in this town. Lastly, in an urgent concern, stormwater runoff. I live off Pope Road, down at the bottom of the road before it goes back up to Ephesus. At the bottom of Pope Road is Clark Lake. The Hughes Street development would create an enormous amount of runoff into Clark Lake, as well as perhaps twice the amount of current storm runoff, which will further threaten the integrity of our dam and spillway. If our dam and spillway are breached, then this could result in flooding for our neighbors in lower lying areas. I understand that the stormwater issue was addressed on an earlier meeting. However, I strongly encourage this lake and its potential impact, if breached, to be carefully assessed. I will wrap up by saying that I strongly request that you not rezone this property and keep it zoned as is. Respect the future land use expectation at 1 to 4 units per acre. Once you start to rezone these protected areas, it is a slippery slope. I request your allegiance lie with the current residents of Chapel Hill, not developers trying to profit off the destruction of our town or future renters who do not live here yet. Please consider each development as a development that is planned to go up right next to your neighborhood and impinge on the lovely community around your family. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my concerns. 8 seconds over, not bad.
Thank you. Thank you.
All righty, we've got Keith Shaw followed by Anthony.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. I live at 114 Cricket Ground, which is the first of 11 residential properties for which the current stormwater leaves this property and heads down to Clark Lake. That's my primary concern at this point. I am an architect. I do work with development, so I understand impacts and all that, and that this property is an old property with multiple very small homes and mid-sized homes that are currently all being rented out at this point. That pond sits about 10 to 12 feet behind a dam above my yard. Approximately 60, I've looked at the contour maps from Durham County, 60 to 70% of this land flows into my yard. On May 22nd, was it the 27th? On the 27th, I recorded there was a major rain event that occurred. I work over here in Easttown, and I went home, and I was home about 30, 40 minutes after the rain had ended. It was sunny. I took videos of the river in my backyard, as well as I went down to Clark Lake. The lake at that point had about 4 to 5 inches of rain overspilling its banks and made literally a rushing river that was flowing around the dam. It had totally overwhelmed the overflow intake and was just a surging river. So I know Judy has those videos. I've sent links to the planning department so they would be aware of that. I am I have lived on Cricket Ground for 22 years. I lived in Pope's Crossing across the street for the 10 years. So I have been on this street for 32 years. I am extremely concerned about the overall density of this project. I think it's the site is ripe for development, but in a much less dense and more contextual R1, redevelop it as a residential, individual, single family home, residential neighborhood, cottages and things like that, but on a much less dense impervious surface development. I mean, you can check with Judy, get those videos, look at those, and you will see what currently is happening. There is a 30-foot tall bamboo wall basically that runs along the south of this property that separates us, our community, from that property, right? It is an unkept wild jungle, and that's the only thing that's now keeping us apart from that community. That is currently a stagnant green pond for which my dogs would just love to get in. So please really consider stormwater management on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Anthony followed by Charles Berlin. I think that's everybody.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, we're having a little bit of an issue with our video, but this is Anthony and Chris. We're from East Coast Electric Speed Shop, and we wanted to talk to you just a little bit about why we think e-bikes are such an important part of this development and why we think they add so much to the local infrastructure. But to start off, I just wanted to say that multiple small, dense, and walkable developments like this are not only more sustainable, we think, but they're better for our mental and physical health as well. And e-bikes are a crucial part of helping actualize and realize those benefits, particularly as a micro-mobility solution. They help people get back and forth into downtown easier. They create a sense of vibrancy and help get people moving and spending money in our downtown businesses. And they also help can be a great way to help get people to take better advantage of public transportation by being a great first and last mile solution. We've listened a lot to other communities, and we've heard some of the concerns about e-bikes. And we think that by partnering and providing really good rider education, we can alleviate those two kind of major concerns that kept coming up, which was safety for riders and avoiding public nuisance. And so, with a robust education program, we think we can get more people moving faster, more efficiently, and cheaper, while also being safe and looking cool while they're at it.
So, hey, longer story short, my name is Chris Carini. I've been the owner of Linda's Bar and Grill on Franklin Street for the last 11 years. As a side note, someone had commented, no, this is not an e-bike infomercial. However, long and the short of it is this. My largest demographic that I have at the restaurant during the daytime is kind of the similar demographic that I have to people who are buying the e-bikes. So we have a shop that we sell, fix, and work on these bikes with, but I also have a restaurant below it. Because of that, my biggest demographic is usually 55 plus. A lot of people looking to overcome knee issues. I myself have had 2 knee issues, so they're youthful. At the risk of all of this sounding again like an e-bike infomercial, the whole town is geared for change. We are sitting on.
Keep going, you got 30 seconds.
Sure. So we're sitting on the edge of some very, very big changes in the near future. And the long story short of it is a rising tide raises all boats. And we're either going to deal with this right now, whether people move in, or we're going to wait until it becomes a problem. Right now, we have the chance to add people to our tax base and make sure that there are people that are enough to fix roads and continue. So thanks for listening.
Thank you, Anthony and Chris. Thank you.
And Charles Berlin.
Let's start with who you are.
My name is Charles Berlin. I live close to this proposed development, sponsored the recently submitted petition signed by 500 individuals requesting a rethinking of the planning for the 4 proposals in this small area, and have been updating many citizens as this unfolds. The Hughes Street project before you is to be complemented in several aspects, as it's the only one of the 4 that proposes some owner-occupied housing, has mixed building types, and gives some modest specific attention to affordable housing. However, as has been noted by several of the committees that this has passed through, including one where it was suggested that this whole plan be scrapped and started over from scratch, there are several serious problems with this proposal. First, the mass and residential density of all the buildings here is enormous and stunningly out of scale for all the low-rise neighborhoods it will abut in this low-density zone neighborhood and not in the future land use target zone. You all know the project nearing completion on nearby Mount Moriah Road. I've yet to meet a person who hasn't been distressed by the magnitude of that, and yet that project is one of 3-story buildings, and this Hughes Street development proposes even larger 4-story buildings, 9 of them mostly surrounding the project like a looming castle wall encasing a little village behind it. Second, this is a currently beautifully forested piece of land with many mature old growth trees. The vast majority of these will be cleared out for this project, something criticized during committee hearings as being very avoidable with a different building layout. Third are the very real traffic concerns. This is a core, complete neighborhood issue that transcends this one proposal. Together, the 4 proposed developments seek space for 1,900 cars. If each of these projected cars were to be used once or twice daily, that calculates out to more than 1 million additional car trips on Old Chapel Hill Road per year, a 2-lane road that can never be widened and may well strangle the intersections at the roundabouts and by Wegmans, which are already beyond capacity at certain times of day. Is this what you want for this part of town? There are also concerns about some of what the developer labels as amenities, whether they truly are that or more public relations puffery, but there's not time to address that tonight. You as our town council have at least 2 constituencies here. First, the needs of the current residents of this town, and second, the needs of future residents of this town. These needs may coincide or conflict. Your job is to find the right compromises. Some time ago, I shared with one of you my concern that council action might damage our neighborhood. The response I received was, it's not our intention to damage any neighborhoods. I hope that's a genuine sentiment that you all share and includes existing citizens as valid stakeholders as much as future ones in your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have some more hands raised. So we have Emily Kaiser, followed by Jonathan Wexler.
Hi, everyone. This is Emily. Thanks for the opportunity to add to this conversation. I echo a lot of my neighbors' sentiments, so I won't reiterate them here. I live on Alba Lane, which is just adjacent to the proposed development. So I'll just limit my comments to 2 observations from the presentation. One being the estimation of 1.6 cars per unit. With the target population for this development, as stated, being couples, young families, young professionals, you're really talking about at least 2-car households. And then plus, as stated, the potential for main level ADUs, you're potentially adding another car or 2 to these units. So I feel that that 1.6 car calculation feels off given that information. So just feeding that information into, many of the traffic concerns that have already been stated. And then my second comment is related to the e-bikes. And I think while they are a lovely option and offer many benefits, devoid of this particular context, I think intentionally placing 25-mile-per-hour vehicles on single lane traffic roads like Pope Road and Old Chapel Hill Road seems like it would only create potential further traffic challenges, as the many additional cars on the road, which have been outlined by many of my neighbors here, would then find themselves bottlenecked behind these slower moving vehicles. So again, as we've noted, improvements to Pope Road are unlikely. Old Chapel Hill has just been locked into these lovely developments with sidewalks and bike lanes, but we really are locked into one lane traffic in each direction. So therefore, the addition of e-bikes seems really challenging for traffic. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jonathan Wexler.
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. So I wasn't really prepared to say anything tonight, but I think it's important you actually hear from somebody who lives in this neighborhood. I live right next to the fetid swamp that was spoken of earlier. It's not a fetid swamp. It does have an aerator. There are geese that live there. They've raised their babies, and I've watched them grow up this spring, and it's been pretty awesome. So in terms of mental health, I'd have to say the way it is now is way more conducive to mental health. Now, I understand the property is going to have to sell, but that doesn't mean, you know, it needs 250 units. I think that the e-bikes, you know, that does seem like a dead end. First of all, we just got a bus stop here. So if anybody's going to use a discount from a UNC employee or a Town of Chapel Hill employee, they're going to ride the bus. They're not going to take an e-bike. You know, I think if the road were widened to have been a second lane, or if people have said adding a turning lane, that might have been something, but the project was just completed and there was no widened road. And then add that to the Pope Road problem of no municipality having any sort of authority over it. Like, it's already a disaster with the Wegmans. The traffic circle backs up from the light at 15501 all the way to Wegmans during rush hour, sometimes beyond. Then you try and cross 40 and get over to Mount Moriah, and there's the whole new development over there. I mean, it's already bad, and there's still only maybe, I don't know how many, 14, 16 units on this property. Now, yeah, like I said, I think some development could be done sensibly, but 264 units. And let me come back to the mental health thing too, because the reason I moved here, and I was lucky enough to find this place in affordable, and yes, these houses are slowly returning to the earth from whence they came, so they need to be replaced. I'm not gonna lie, but the development is amazing. The animals on the lawn, the geese, the deer. I saw a turtle the other day. Like, I've gone online and identified species, and this place used to be a bird sanctuary. That sign came down shortly after I moved in, but it was either an official bird sanctuary or a wildlife sanctuary. So rezoning this is honestly, like, that's a cockamamie idea. I'm sorry, but I moved here from Laurel Ridge, which is built by Thalheimer, or maintained, quote unquote, maintained by Thalheimer. That's a large development corporation, and that place is a disaster. That's what gave me the mental health problems in the first place. Yeah, there was a pandemic and the guy moved exercise equipment in, which shook the apartment. So that's like a weird condition. But that place drove me nuts. This place makes me fine. So please don't change it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to share comments with us on this concept plan? All right. I'm going to bring it back to council, and I'm going to start us off. So hang on there. I want to say that we need council to stay at a high level like we've done before. We don't need to get into the e-bike discussion. I don't think that's where we need to spend our efforts. We need to talk about overall things. And one of the overall things I know that we want to talk about is the planning together. That these 4 developments need to be planning together with our staff, maybe with our visioning team. We want to spend the effort to make sure that whatever goes in this area fits together to create a sense of community, not just 4 separate projects that go on. So we want to see that work happen. In fact, we wanted to delay this concept plan so everyone was further along in the working together. We also want to see some design guidelines that make sense for this area and some consistency with that. I'd like you to talk about, council members, what you think about the massing, the density, the mix of housing, what types you're looking for. We've stated some of the things we're looking for. We know we're looking for affordable housing in both home ownership and rental. We also know that we're looking for middle housing and townhomes and those kinds of things as well. We know we have stormwater concerns. Those can be addressed through the stormwater processes, but if you want to speak about that or ask questions, that is fine. I think the traffic concerns are big, but I don't think we're going to solve those tonight. So if you just want to talk about that, again, prefer us not to get into the debates on the minor details. We need to give some guidance at the higher level of what we think this area could be. We all know things have changed. We also know the light rail plan is not the same plan anymore, but transit's going to be a huge component of the future of this corridor, even though this particular project's one street removed, is part of the corridor system. People are using the old Chapel Hill Road instead of 15501, thereby increasing traffic as well. And we don't have control of our neighbors' development, that being Durham County and Durham City, putting in, big apartment complexes. You heard about the Overture. You've heard about the big one on Mount Moriah Road. Those are all in this similar area. I will say, though, they're filled. I mean, not the new ones that are under construction, but the Overture, those places, people are still moving here. Our housing study shows we are still short housing for this community. We're concerned about our environmental and sustainable future. So please share it at higher level, if you will. If we can not get into the weeds, that would be helpful here. So, Ms. Anderson, you had your hand. Okay, followed by Mr. Parker.
Yeah, I completely agree with staying higher level, and I think that probably what I'll stick to is what I'm hoping you all can focus on with as the entire area with the other parcels. So all my comments will be about that. I do appreciate that you've been following some of our housing studies. I think continuing to follow, I don't know what we're calling it today, but kind of our complete communities, our complete neighborhoods work over the summer will be, I'm hoping, really helpful for all of us and for you as the development team to understand kind of what we're aiming for across town. And it'll be nuanced for various areas, but I think there will be some things that will be true everywhere. We know that we want the diverse housing types and different people of different incomes living in the same area, which I think, to me, it looks like you're doing here. But again, I think it needs to be figured out with the other parcels as well, and how that's going to work. And I don't know what I don't know yet. So I don't know if your parcel is the one where all this housing should be, or there should be some commercial here and there should be some housing on the others. I don't know yet, but I do like that you are addressing a multitude of housing needs here. I do think we're going to be looking for access to parks, being able to have access to parks, commercial, transit. I think transit here will be a big one. So working with the staff on the transit level and the type of transit that needs to be here will be really important. The stormwater staff, I think, can be really helpful here, figuring out, do you want to be mitigating 100-year storms? What's the mitigation level needed given what we're seeing in this part of town and in this area? I'd also love to see some of our climate action plan. We, have integrating the climate action plan on the front end into whatever the development plan is across the parcels. And I think really thinking about how does this become a complete neighborhood across the parcels will just be really critical. I also think working with Easttown, we know Easttown will come back at some point, and figuring out what the synergy with them needs to be, or if there are shared interests there, if something can happen here that would help them, I think that would be great. But overall, I do think, I know that it's hard when people move here and then things change. We also know that if we don't build more housing, I don't think it's going to be the future we want either. So I think we have to think about the trade-offs that change is hard, but not changing is going to be even harder. We don't want to be an unaffordable bedroom community. We don't want the outcomes that we found out about through our housing study, and we have better targets for what we're trying to do. So I don't think it's reasonable for us to say no to housing. I also think that as long as we're, building towards complete neighborhoods where we have the infrastructure in place and people have access to the amenities they want and need, I think this could be a really exciting collaboration between you and the other projects. So, so thanks for coming, and I'll be looking forward to see what happens with the staff and the other parcels to really come up with a great overall plan.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask all of you to, I know I heard certain things, but if you want to comment on the density or the number of units or the traffic, just to give us some kind of indication of where you are in the thinking. I know, Ms. Anderson, you talked about the overall. So if you're looking at an overall density picture, that's fine too, and you can say that. Just want to touch on that so the developer has some idea whether.
Are you asking me to comment on that now?
Yes, please.
I think generally I don't necessarily have a problem with this density. I just don't know how it looks compared to the others. Once we come up with a really great plan with the other parcels, I think it will be easier for me to assess that. And once you figure out the various mitigations and how the transit will support things and all the, and if there need to be road improvements, I think that will help to understand better what the density can and should be. I also think looking at our housing targets will be helpful to understand over the summer how much housing should we be looking to develop around here. And I think that can help us to figure out that number too.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot. I just want people to give feedback so they know whether they're enhancing this plan together or not. All right, Mr. Parker, and then I saw Mr. Searen's hand.
Yeah, so I'll second a lot of what Ms. Anderson said. I mean, the overall total planning here is critical, and it's a bit difficult to make specific comments about this project in the absence of the broader plan. So my number one, statement is that I'm glad that the developer is willing to participate. And, I'm confident that if all the developers participate under the guidance of the consulting team and the planning staff, we can really come up with something terrific. And, that is the number one thing here. And that's why I think we, perhaps thought about not having this conversation tonight. A few specific comments, just because you asked. I think in terms of traffic, we will do presumably an area-wide TIA that looks at both traffic, but also prioritizes the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists as our Vision Zero resolution requires. And then we'll know exactly what needs to be done where and by whom. We don't know that today, but that is knowable and we will know it. Similarly with stormwater, ideally we would be able to think about managing stormwater on an area-wide basis rather than a project-by-project basis. That may be a pipe dream, but it's a dream worth at least aspiring to. And so again, I am quite confident that however we do it, our stormwater staff will ensure that the individual projects at a minimum don't make any things worse, and hopefully in some cases make things better for residents who live in the area. We've had some successes with that already. In terms of the specifics of the project, just two really. One is in spite of, and I don't have any particular problem with the density, with the caveat that when we've done the area plan, we'll know better whether that's too much or too little or whatever. But it needs a streetscape. This is just a big parking lot with stuff stuck in it, and it could just as easily be a suburban office park. and there needs to be a streetscape. The area, you've done nothing to define the area with roads or streets. It's just, it's just a big parking lot that cars drive through to get to where they're going. And that, I think, is its most serious flaw. There is a lot of parking. I think we need to really start looking at ways in which we can ratchet back the parking. You've got 230 or so units with, north of 400 spaces, and that seems excessive to me. Again, these are all things hopefully our, planning will address, but things I'll call out at the moment. And again, there's the pieces, I applaud the mix of uses of housing types you've put there, but there's no integration. You've got cottages, you've got some other things. They don't fit together in any meaningful way. You've actually gone to great lengths, it seems, to separate them from each other rather than creating an integrated place where different kinds of folks, renters and owners and older folks and younger folks, mix and mingle. It feels very artificial in that regard. So those are the major comments I have, but again, I'm looking forward to seeing what emerges, in the fall.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Searing?
Yeah, I'll just make some overall comments. I mean, just to start off with, I'll just note that, the debate here is not don't build anything or build something. I mean, I think there's general acknowledgement there's going to be a housing and a mix of other uses built on these sites. So, I think that the debate is not do nothing. The debate is what should we do? And I think following necessarily from that is this project shows just why overall planning is desperately needed in this area. I mean, it is very hard to envision just looking at this project, how it fits into the other parcels that are going to get developed, how it fits into the area, how it's going to fit into the parks like Legion Park, how it's going to fit into the traffic connectivity. We really need to do a better job here of comprehensive planning. And it is just too bad that we're having this discussion tonight before we do that. Specifically, I think, listening to some of the comments tonight is that the density for me is a problem so far, looking at what we are, seeing in this initial, go round, which is not with our comprehensive planning. But if this is what we're going to see, it's too dense. The connectivity, I think, is a real problem. I mean, it's all well and good to talk about, bikes and everything, but there's two roads. They're both really busy. I've ridden a bike on those roads. They're dangerous. You're not going to have a 14-year-old riding a bike safely down, or a 10-year-old or 12-year-old down Chapel Hill, Old Chapel Hill with a bike path, even on there. And Pope Road, give me a break. I mean, I'd get terrified riding on there myself. We need to explore in this planning process, is there a way to connect through these other neighborhoods that go more towards the center of town, so folks could ride through these neighborhoods to places like Legion Park and the shopping centers over there? And you could send your kids out there to do that instead of having to worry that they're going to be on one of these major arteries. I think the runoff is a huge problem. That area is got Clark Lake typifies this, but it's a very low point in the town. There's a lot of stormwater and water that's running through there and running into the plain beyond I-40. If you drive on I-40, you can see it becomes a big lake when we have a lot of storms. So we've really got to think about that. And then the final thing I'll say is that, we need to listen to our community and to our neighbors. And when you have, some 500 neighbors signing a petition saying, be careful, plan, think this through, we need to make sure we listen to that. And that really impresses me, the amount of input we have so far from our neighbors. And I hope we continue to reach out and get more as we do the planning process, which I think is critical. So those are my overall thoughts.
Okay. Ms. Miller-Fouché, then Ms. Stegman.
Thank you. And I'd like to just piggyback off of what Councilmember Searing was saying. We do need to plan. And I think that's what we're talking about here, wanting to do, making sure that we're doing some overall planning in conjunction with the other developments that are in the pipeline here. And so I'm really glad that we're moving towards that to help foster some continuity, that connectivity that he just mentioned with those other projects, so we can achieve our goals of complete communities. That's going to be really, really important. I appreciate the density. We need more housing. I appreciate the different types of housing that's proposed here. I like that we're going to have both rental as well as ownership here. I appreciate the affordable housing plan. Would like to want to elevate 30% AMI. I know that can be difficult to do, but those are some of our most vulnerable community members, and would like to see within all of these units that you're providing some opportunities for our community members at that AMI. Traffic, we have community members having to commute in and out. So hopefully when folks are able to live within our community, that will help to drive down the traffic as folks will be using our transit system. So want to keep that at the forefront of people's mind as we're talking about traffic. Want to appreciate my lack of knowledge of Pope Road, so would love for staff to help me, catch me up to speed with that and the challenges that were elevated tonight from public comment. Amenities, I see the plaza, the pool, the clubhouse, the green space. Really like that you were thoughtful about the Ghost Kitchens food court and that playground. So really enjoying those amenities. But speaking of continuity, there needs to be more within the development itself. I agree with Councilmember Parker about all of the separation and the lack of continuity there. So it looks like a parking lot to me as well. So let's take a look at that parking and escaping that needs to take place. So that's it. Those are my notes. Oh, one question I did have about townhouses and their square footage. Would like to know what that is, so I can get a sense of, since we're talking about missing middle, what price points we're looking at.
For the 4-story ones, I presume those would be, well, when I say 4-story, 2-story over 2-story, roughly about 1,800 to 2,200 square feet. The 3-story, which would be the 1-bedroom with and then a 2-story above that, probably the entire building with all three, probably 2,100 to 2,400 square feet, with that 1-bedroom being somewhere between 650 and 800 square feet. So the other one being about 1,500.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I have Ms. Stegman followed by Mr. Nguyen.
Yeah, thanks. I'll try not to repeat anything that's been said. I certainly agree with the comments about needing to plan. And I have a question not to be answered tonight, but just I hope and assume that Colleen or our planning department will be providing leadership to this planning and not just kind of telling the developers to all, figure it out. So I hope we can play a helpful, oh, hi, Colleen, do you want to say something? Please go ahead.
Sure, not to interrupt anyone. But I did want to let you know that yes, we will be planning leadership with this group, as well as Brian Peterson. He's also been closely involved to help produce some of the diagrams and some of the studies to help facilitate the discussions and provide like a facilitation of the entire process. Mm-hmm.
Fabulous. That's an exact plan I would want. Thank you for that. And so the positives I think are, I do like the housing mix. I like, I feel like we talk a lot, this council, about wanting to see different housing types, and then we never get them. So I'm really excited to have this mix of housing. We've talked about stacked townhomes, but haven't been brought any cottage court type models. So I really appreciate that a lot. And as others have said, we need more housing in the community. We have the data that clearly shows that. So I am supportive of that. But again, it does need to be planned and coordinated, so it's not just, overwhelming. I appreciate the community members who have taken the time to speak tonight and share their concerns. And I hope that the development teams will make sure they're communicating with the neighbors and listening and, having some dialogue about how whatever new development we end up with can benefit the existing neighbors, because I think that can be done, and it can be beneficial to both folks that are here and the folks that are wanting to live here. So I'd like to see that happen. So I appreciate the housing mix. I appreciate the creativity. I won't get into the details, but I really appreciate the creativity that you're bringing to this around, ghost kitchens, e-bikes, like just thinking differently about what could benefit residents. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how that evolves as the plans move forward. I really like the green space, the pond as an amenity, those kinds of things. I agree with Mr. Parker about it needs internal connectivity. Pope Road is clearly a concern. So thinking about how, multimodal transit could really be realistic here, I think will be really important. I think that's it. Did I answer everything you wanted, Pam?
Yes,
Mayor?
thank you.
Meeker?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Nguyen, followed by Ms. Berry.
Yeah, I won't repeat what Councilmember Stedman just said. I agree with that. I think the housing mix definitely meets the needs presented in the housing study, and we'll get additional clarity on that with the work this summer. I also appreciate the connectivity or the creativity. I'm a fan of e-bikes, but that's just me. And I think your other question was around the traffic. I think I'll echo Councilmember Parker's thing on that for the area-wide TIA, and I'll definitely double down on the working together with our staff, especially Brian and Colleen. I appreciate their leadership on this. Anything else on there? Oh, the density. I mean, in principle, I'm fine with it, but again, need to see kind of how it fits in with the other 3 or 4 proposals. Is that all the questions, Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I did want to ask Judy, is there a plan, or Colleen, for an overall TIA for the whole area with all these? How does that work?
Well, we did talk about that with the individual developers and what that could look like, and it makes sense here. So we'll be working with them over the summer to figure out. So that stage happens at the formal application. We're not there yet, but we'll be trying to figure out how that works. If it's one person starts it and then they all add to it, or if they do a joint contribution towards one TIA altogether. We'll work out the logistics of that, but the goal is to have a comprehensive TIA. That's what's needed here. We agree with that.
I think it's a perfect opportunity to use the townwide traffic model that we invested in, and that really was very helpful, around Estes. So I think we should really be pivoting around that.
Okay, thank you for answering that. All right, I have Ms. Berry, followed by Ms. Ryan. Okay.
Ms. Ryan can go because I'm still. Go for it, Ms. Ryan. Thank you.
No, you were first. I don't want to take your spot.
I hadn't raised my hand, so it's all good. Go for it.
Oh, okay. Don't be shy. I just want to start by echoing everybody's comments about the importance of comprehensive planning here. When Judy put that first slide up that showed kind of the first concepts that everybody was coming up with, it's just super disconnected. So yeah, we need to bring everybody together so that we get something that's more than the sum of its parts here. So, what we're looking for are strong neighborhoods, connectivity that works, and stormwater that works. I agree with Councilmember Stegman that this kind of development actually should be done with an eye to making the area better, not only for the people who will be coming in, but for the existing neighbors as well. I think it can be a real benefit to them. So I think it's important in our discussions about density that part of the goal of density is to not only enable us to build housing, but also to preserve green and open space. It provides stormwater management, it provides environmental services, it provides recreation, it cleans our air, it does a whole lot of really important things. So I'm okay with density here, especially if we use it to get more of those other things. In answer to your question, I don't know how to tell you if I feel like something is too dense. My concern here is that we're creating a neighborhood, that it's a comfortable place to live. It's a place where people want to live. And I don't want to build a lot of the stuff I've seen going up in nearby communities is really just housing and parking lots. So if you can make a complete neighborhood that has lots of density in it, but that has green space and open space and public places where people want to be, and it's dense, then great, that's a win-win for me. I don't know how this would compare to kind of the denser parts of Southern Village, which is a very walkable, livable, great place to be, and actually has a fair amount of density in parts of it. So moving forward, again, my concern isn't with the actual density numbers, but it's whether you're making a really desirable place to be. In terms of the other questions, I'm glad that you're considering a diversity of housing types. I think that's terrific, especially with the stacked townhomes. I would be even for having smaller units. We have this affordability problem, and people keep coming in with units that are 1,800, 2,200 square feet. I think one of the ways we're going to help with affordability for folks is by really scaling down units. And as our housing consultant keeps telling us, people will accept smaller units happily if the amenities in the neighborhood are really good. So again, think about as you're sizing these, if we can actually go down in size on some of it.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, one of the other concepts I was thinking about was basically kind of like a quadplex brownstone type looking building.
Sixplex. Dan, I don't know if Dan Jewell has taken you on the Trinity Park density walk yet, but there's some great stuff there.
On the schedule.
Show him the Salmon Apartments.
Okay.
So yeah, no, I would be, complete sixplexes, all that kind of stuff. I think that would be terrific. And finally, again, people else have mentioned connectivity, how this fits with transit, again, with what's going to be developing over at East Town and coming in the area. We've got some greenway, not really some Chapel Hill greenways very nearby, but there are some Durham ones that are kind of on the other side of 40. So I don't know what the connectivity to those could look like. And when I agree, I'm very happy that staff is involved, is going to be working with you. I'm glad Brian is on the job. When we did Chapel Hill North, Dwight was also involved to help keep us in market reality land. So I think his input of his office would be useful as well. Thank you.
Yes, sorry, he's also included. Yes.
Great.
All right, Ms. Berry.
Okay, I'm up. I do have a question for those of you. TIA, is that traffic impact analysis? Because
Yes.
not all of us know the acronyms. Okay.
Yes.
And there might be folks, residents who are tuning in who don't know. So thank you. I wanted to make sure I knew that. I'm going to echo some, so you're going to hear repeats. I do appreciate the creativity. I appreciate the mix of housing. And the different types, yes, it would be nice to connect them a little bit more. I would be curious about how you are going to ensure that the populations that you want to have access to those more affordable because of their size, the cottages, actually are available to those folks. So that's a question. Density, I am one for housing, but I am curious to see more of how this fits in with everything else. I don't want to be irresponsible. I am for more housing, but I am mindful. I am familiar with Pope Road. I have driven it. I can't imagine riding my bicycle. I'm not that good to do it. So that is not your problem alone. So I appreciate that you are in conversation with our planning department and willing to work with the other developers. So this encourages me. This gives me the hope, the optimism that with these different projects, yours along with the others, we can get to what we call the complete communities. I don't want them to be just buzzwords. I want them to be realities that my colleagues have talked about. So what I would like to convey to you is I appreciate the creativity that you've invested into this. And it also speaks to me. I'm going to hopefully lead you there, that you are willing to be even more creative as we look as how yours fits in the greater whole. So thank you for leading us tonight with this.
Okay, I'll add my comments and then try to sum us up. I agree with a lot of what my council members have said. The mix of housing is something we're definitely looking for, but I do feel like it is a parking lot and needs more connectivity and different kinds of thinking with the different kinds of housing types. So I look forward to seeing some shifts there. The biggest thing though is connecting and integrating with the other developments there and creating a sense of place and community. And to me, that involves many other things as well. You're going to have to look at the intersection of East Lake and Chapel Hill Boulevard if you're adding all the developments, not just this one, because it's already a left turn nightmare for folks and it's just going to get worse there. But we need a transit stop that can address some of that as well. And we're going to need opportunities for pedestrians to better integrate in that area. And you're going to be affecting that area greatly. I also really want to stress that the Pope Road situation, we need help. You're going to have a very unsafe situation for your own residents unless we get some help there with whatever can happen, being that it's a DOT road, but I go that way almost every day and it's a struggle. You heard a little bit about stormwater. We want to make sure we're not making it worse for folks. We want the stormwater to be helpful. If there's other opportunities to make that a reality, we need to be aware of that ahead of time. I do want that visioning to help us with, as Michael put, streetscape, but also design standards, and also how do we create that people know that they're in this section of town. I know Southern Village is encased, and so is Meadowmont, but you know you're there, you know the style, and we want to see what that can look like as you come together and work with folks. I also, again, I'll stress the transit, getting folks from this area up to 15501 for transit or over to East Town. How do you make it work to make it a sense of community? And then providing those amenities that other people might want to come to this area. I have seen, I was through a town recently that had they did a series of 6 tiny houses, 3 on either side, where they had pop-up business opportunities for people in the middle. I think that's kind of what you're looking at there. And there was like a brewery and a coffee person and a soap person making soap. They could just rent the space for a short period of time. It was kind of cool because people came out because there were picnic tables and lights strung across between. And it was something that attracted outside folks. There was actually no housing around it. It was downtown, so it was attracting people to come there. I thought it was an interesting concept. So we like your creativity, so keep going with that. But you're hearing from all of council, they really, really want you to coordinate with the others and with our staff and hopefully with our visioning team as we move forward with this ideas of how to make this a sense of a connected and complete community. So I think that's where we're going. Was there anything we didn't answer or give advice back on or just comments that you need to hear from us?
I think, for several of you qualifying your comments that you really hadn't dug too deep into this. I think we've got a good, wonderful range of thoughtful comments, and that's exactly what we wanted. So this will certainly inform us as we continue to meet with the other developers in the area, and also inform how we rethink how we deal with this site internally. So we do appreciate it all the time. They're excellent comments. Thank you.
And if I could just take 10 seconds here, I just want to tell you guys, I appreciate y'all taking the time. I understand that everybody wanted us to kind of pause and work with the other ones, you know, and I'm 2 of the 4 projects that are being kind of proposed. But this site, I had a very short window of time to make a decision on whether I had to buy it or not. And literally, I would have to close on it before we'd have gone through this process. So I just kind of want to throw this out to you guys on like where my head was at and just kind of like what I was envisioning and just kind of understand if you like what I was thinking in general. And that's really all I wanted to get out of this. And I did get that. So I appreciate that.
Okay, okay, fair enough. All right, I need a motion to transmit our comments, please.
So moved.
Been moved by Mr. Parker, second by Ms. Stegman to
I said not a word.
Who said it then? I?
Ouch.
Who did it? Who made the motion? Somebody said so moved.
Coach.
Was it you?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Wynn, second by Ms. Stegman. Just speak up. It's hard, guys. There's like, how many boxes on here? All right. Roll call vote, please. Ms. Stegman.
Aye.
Ms. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Berry.
Aye.
Mr. Wynn.
Aye.
Ms. Miller-Frichy.
Aye.
Mr. Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Ryan.
Aye.
Mr. Searing.
Aye.
The mayor says aye as well. Thank you very much. All right, I'll write 2 pages of notes on that one. That's good. Okay. All right, that brings us to our next concept plan, which is the Barbie Chapel Apartments.
All righty, good evening. I'm Judy Johnson with our planning department. As the mayor said, this is a concept plan for the Barbie Chapel Residential. You can see the dot there on the map. This is located just south of NC 54 and to the east of Barbie Chapel Road. Friday Center is just a little bit to the west of it, and Meadowmont is just to the north and the other side of NC 54. Similar to the last project that we saw, Durham, the town limit line runs just to the east of it, Durham County being to the east, and Chapel Hill, this is all within Chapel Hill's jurisdiction, although the properties are within Durham County. Going to go very quickly through this. The recommendation is to transmit comments, and so we just talked through this slide on the last project, so I'm just going to skip to the summary. I'm going to go very, very briefly on this. It's about 10.5 acres and comprising of 10 parcels. It is zoned R2. Application is proposing roughly between 325 to 355 multifamily dwelling units. They are proposing an affordable housing component. They are developing that. And similar to the last project that we just talked about, you'll remember the Hillmont project came to the council as a concept plan back, I believe it was beginning of April. And we have, the applicant has been encouraged to collaborate with that property. And I understand they have been in conversations with them, and there is some expectation that we will be going through, not quite as, maybe not in depth as is only 2 property owner or property developments here, but a similar exercise for this property. This did also go to our advisory boards. The Community Design Commission did review it. They wanted, focusing on some internal connections, green space, looking at the building orientation and incorporation of the playground into the design. There was some concern about the amount of impervious surface and density, the impact of the parking all being at grade, and looking at possible improving pedestrian connections to the north where the gas station is. Housing Advisory Board did just review this last night, so you did just get their comments and the stormwater comments late this afternoon. But the Housing Advisory Board did encourage more housing, the affordable housing to serve households earning below 60%. And then our Stormwater Management Utility Advisory Board was concerned about the amount of impervious, the amount of density, and the amount of floor area. They did encourage the use of the medians as a stormwater device and retention of the existing tree canopy as possible, and looking at possible reductions in parking numbers, and concern about just being thoughtful about the location of the stormwater control measures to avoid impact on the neighbors. Our urban designer has also looked at this. He suggested consider more of a street-oriented circulation parking design, organizing the buildings around a central green space, somewhat similar to what the Community Design Commission suggested. Again, the integration with the Hillmont proposal and looking at possible creation of a gateway entrance, more diverse housing types. He also liked the farmhouse precedent images that were suggested, although had a little, just had concern or thoughts about how that's shown or how that's developed. Did want to take a second to look at the future land use map. It is shown in the sub area A of the NC 54 corridor. You see the star there. This red line is talking about a street activated frontage that's shown in the flume. The predominant primary uses in this area show as multifamily shops and offices, multifamily residential, or commercial office. And that is my presentation. I believe I'm turning it over to Michael Skina with the development team. If you would like, or I'm happy to answer any questions.
No, let's go ahead and hear the applicant and then we can ask questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Judy, and thank you to the mayor and to council. I know it's getting late, so I will try to be brief. This is the first time we've met, so I'm going to cover a little bit of background. But hey, if I'm ever just dragging along, just give me a little kick under the table. I'm happy to speed up. Thank you so much for having us, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts and comments on this proposal. I am the Regional Director of Acquisitions and Development for Toll Brothers Apartment Living. Toll Brothers Apartment Living is the rental apartment development arm of Toll Brothers Inc., the national home builder. Probably more importantly, I'm a triple heel. I received my bachelor's, my master's in Master of City and Regional Planning, and my MBA from UNC. Spent 7 years in Chapel Hill, and so I care deeply about the town. I love the town, and I'm excited to be back presenting this in front of y'all, and hopefully giving other folks an opportunity to live in Chapel Hill like I did. Let me put this in full screen. That might be a little easier. And then I will. Here we go. So with me today is other members of the development team from Toll Brothers Apartment Living, as well as our co-developer, a local group, Rockwood Development Group, based in Chapel Hill. Our architect from CI Design, and our civil engineer is McAdams. This is the context plan. I think Judy sort of covered a lot of this, but I do think what I'd like to just what I'd like to say about this context is we're really right on the edge of sort of a more urban, busier 54 North Carolina 54 corridor, and the more suburban sort of transect of the Barbie Chapel Road. And so we sit really in the middle. I think this is an opportunity to really fill that gap. The existing site, as you can see here, this consists of 10 single-family homes. These homeowners, I think importantly to know, these homeowners sort of banded together themselves. They assembled themselves and decided to hire a broker to find the best developer who could help them determine the highest and best use for their property. This was an old farm, the Sparrow Farm, back before the 1950s and 60s. Then it became, a series of single-family homes. And as the town has grown and densified, and there's additional need for housing, we are excited to work with these homeowners to help, determine, how we can maximize their value, but also meet the needs of the town. I wanted to show you this. This is our steep slope plan. And I think this is important because this site is pretty flat. There are not a lot of sort of physical constraints on the site. So you can see there's only a couple places where there's some steep slope. There's no wetlands. There's might be just a tiny smidge of a stream buffer up in the northeast corner, but otherwise it's a very buildable site. And I think that's important because it it allows for the sort of dense development and the provision of affordable housing that we've been talking about tonight. Again, Judy sort of covered this. Our plan, I think, fits very well in with the Chapel Hill 2020 plan and the future land use map. I've highlighted a couple areas here. We are proposing multifamily residential. We are proposing 4- and 5-story buildings, which is under the 6-story height limit. And we are proposing an activated street frontage along Barbie Chapel, which I'll talk about a little later. So, this project, I think, fits within sort of what the town has set forth as what their priorities are in terms of growth going forward. Okay, so the concept plan. So what you're seeing here are 4 multifamily rental apartment buildings surrounding a central green space and community center and a central clubhouse. You'll see some images of what this might look like. We are proposing 2 5-story buildings, buildings 2 and 3, along Barbie Chapel to create a strong street frontage and a strong presence along the street. And then tapering the density back to the 4-story buildings of buildings 1 and 4 as you move away from the street. You can see we are proposing a very large green space surrounding this clubhouse. This is really the center of the community. We're trying to create a connected community, which we've talked about today. And we envision this clubhouse having active recreation with the pool, passive recreation with a large open space and green area, which we'll see some images of later. We are also proposing a child's play area, tot lot, if you will, as well as a play area for your furry children with the dog park next to it. And then, as you can see, what's sort of grayed out into the east and to the south is the Hillmont concept plan, which you guys did hear a few months ago. Now, I think you also heard that Hillmont has some challenges, particularly with UBS. And I think Adam spent a lot of time talking about that, his southern border. So there's some challenges with him moving forward. So what we have agreed to, and we've told everyone who's asked us, is we are happy to work with Hillmont and do everything we can to help coordinate. Of course, we can't tie our projects together because it's not the same development group and they have their own challenges, but we're happy to coordinate. We are proposing at least one connection on the east side of the site. And then we're likely to propose another connection on the south side of the site in this location, which isn't shown, but it's sort of something that we've talked about since we developed this plan. The last thing I wanted to point out is that we are proposing a 10-foot multi-use path along Barbie Chapel. There's not a sidewalk currently on Barbie Chapel. You see folks sort of just pedestrians just walking down the side of the road, which is not safe. We think this is a great community benefit, this 10-foot path, which will eventually connect up to North Carolina 54 and the greenways, which, as you know, run along 54. And will provide a safe pedestrian experience for our residents, for Hillmont's residents, for the Morgan's residents, and other folks. Talking a little bit about housing. So our unit mix, we're proposing 55% studios and 1-bedrooms. We are targeting early career professionals. That's sort of who we are targeting, and we're targeting the almost 2/3 of workers in Chapel Hill that don't live in Chapel Hill. So nurses and school teachers and police officers, faculty and staff at the university. Those are the folks who we are targeting, and I think the 1-bedrooms actually fit a need that is not being met, particularly among sort of the non-student housing type of developments. Lastly, we are proposing in our plan 10% affordable, split between 65% AMI and 80% AMI. Now, what we said before to the housing advisory board is that we know that the policy is 15%. We're proposing 10%. We want to work with staff and work with council. If there are other, we have flexibility. So if we want to change the AMI mix, or if we want to change the sizes of the units, we are happy to sort of address that and see what we can come to an agreement on. Big picture context plan, which I think kind of shows how it sort of fits in with Hillmont conceptual plan that may get developed. And then lastly, I like this context plan because it shows the existing bike and ped and multi-use path greenways. The pink are bus stops. So this is really a transit-oriented development, and you sort of don't think about it initially like that, but it really is, because you're only a quarter mile away, which is an easy walk from some of these bus stops, and maybe just a little bit longer, third of a mile, maybe to the Friday Center bus stops. So we actually do expect folks to walk, to ride their bike, and for this to be a really multimodal experience for our residents. These images are in your package. You've seen them. Just real quickly, modern farmhouse is sort of the design motif we've thought about, and really we like it because it sort of harkens back to the farm, the Sparrow Farm. That was the historic property here. But also we like that it also harkens in name really only to the farms, the UNC Faculty and Staff Recreation Center, which is actually just down the road, as you know, just down Barbie Chapel. So a couple other images. And then these are some massing studies just to show you how does it all fit together, right? So you see the 4 buildings here. You're actually looking from the Friday Center. You're looking east. You see the very large center of our community. This is where we're going to spend a lot of money on this clubhouse to really make it at the heart of the community. Co-working space, the active recreation, passive recreation. You can see the lawn that we're planning in front of this farmhouse style clubhouse. You can see this is a picture of that 10-foot multi-use path that's running along Barbie Chapel. And then I really like this image because it shows how really close we are to higher density buildings, or higher multi-story buildings, the Friday Center and the hotel that are just across from Finley Forest. And then of course Meadowmont on the north side of 54. So I wanted to take a moment and I wanted to talk a little bit about the comments that we heard and how we're planning on addressing them, or at least thinking about them. And then maybe we can riff a little bit as you guys sort of respond to those comments as well and respond to our plan. The Design Commission had, I think, great thoughts on building siting, open space, buffers. So we've written all those down, we've given them to our architect, and the next plan will, we're going to make some adjustments based on those suggestions, which we really appreciated. The Housing Advisory Board encouraged more units at 60% AMI, and this is not something that I'm going to say no to right away. I think we're open to that. We have to put pen to paper or pencil to paper. But we have to be flexible, right? And what does that look like? Is it a lower percentage? Is it, of total affordable units? And that's something that we'd like to work with council on. And then the Stormwater Advisory Board, there were a couple things that they really wanted us to reduce the impervious surface and introduce green stormwater infrastructure. Good news, we were already thinking about green stormwater infrastructure. We know that it's important to the town, so it's already in our budget. We're planning to do it. McAdams is a great engineering group, and they know what they're doing. The impervious surface, we are going to do our best to reduce the impervious surface, but the reality is that this site, because it is so developable, right? Because it's flat and it doesn't have streams or wetlands, it's unique in Chapel Hill. I don't know that it's the right site to be 50% impervious, and I'll probably get pushback on that. But I think if you're going to build anywhere, if you're going to build density anywhere, this is the site that you want to build it on, because it has access to transit. It's got access to the greenways and the bikeways. It's got access to North Carolina 54. And so we're going to work and do our best and come back to you and come back to the advisory board on ways that we can reduce the impervious surface. But at the end of the day, we think that our plan and sort of how we've designed it sort of meets the overall needs of the town. Lastly, Brian's comments. Actually, we met with Brian pretty early, a couple months ago, And one of the things that he told us was create a gateway space, which we've done with our very strong modern farmhouse clubhouse. Some of the other ideas that he had are ideas that I'd like to actually get your thoughts on, the mayor and council's thoughts. Whether or not this wants to be a more what the planners call a rectilinear street grid, right angles. Does this want to be more urban? We can do that. I personally like the plan that we put together, which is more circuitous, a bit more bucolic, maybe actually creates a little bit more green space in the middle, I think. But that's one of the questions that we wanted to pose and get your thoughts on and your responses to. So that's our presentation, and I will turn it back over to you all, and thank you so much.
Thank you. If you can bring us back to full screen. All right. Council members, I'm going to encourage you again, let's stay high level on this. We know that there's the other project, Hillmont, next door. I think we have, well, I know I've heard from many of you the same kind of concerns about getting these two to work together so that there's some kind of continuity, some kind of connectivity, some kind of balancing out. So if you want to stay at the higher level, that would be appreciated. Does this meet our housing needs in Chapel Hill? We've heard we've had our housing study, and I believe when I'm looking over this, it looked like it was, I'm sorry, I guess we need clarifying questions first. I'm sorry, I jumped again. Okay, I'm tired. I got really late last night, out of the country. I'm three, all right, I'm so sorry. Okay. So clarifying questions, I want to make sure I'm going to ask this first one. Currently, it looks to me that it's about 75% impervious surface. Is that correct?
That's right. That's exactly right. And I will, can I make a comment on that? So look, I understand it's huge, right? The zoning says 50% for residential projects. I get it. It's an issue to overcome. When you consider the future land use map and you consider the sub area A, and you look at sub area A, that is actually mostly our project and Hillmont's project. And once, Hillmont, as you know, as you saw, has a lot of these physical features that naturally create more impervious surface, steep slopes, wetlands, streams, other kinds of buffers that they have. And when you combine our projects, if you put them together and you say, hey, how does stormwater work for the town, combine this sub area, the two projects combined actually are at 42% impervious. And so that's how I would encourage you guys to look at it. You push back and say you're crazy. That I understand, but when you start to think about how can we look at stormwater holistically, that's how I would maybe approach it.
While we hear you, that would be a great benefit to your project, that you get the pervious outcomes. But anyway, okay. Clarifying questions. I don't need to make comments. Mr. Parker, followed by Ms. Ryan.
Yeah, I apologize if you've touched on this. How are you handling parking? Is it all surface parking, or is it under building, underground? Because I imagine that potentially accounts for a lot of your impervious surface.
That's right. Yeah. So all of our parking is at the surface, and that was an intentional choice to maintain affordability on our rents, both from the market perspective and for our dedicated affordable units, which our affordable units are in the buildings. They look just the same as our market rate units. They're spread around. They're not clustered. But yes, that's right. Surface parking.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Ryan.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I was glad you asked about the impervious, because the memo we got from the Stormwater Board cited a 70% standard, but it's 50%, correct, Judy?
It's actually 70% so the 50 is for single family, two family, and 70% is for non-single family, two family. That makes sense. So everything, so it's one bucket is 50%, everything else is in the 70% bucket.
Okay, when and if this comes back, can you clarify what exactly that means? Because my understanding was residential was always at 50%.
Yes, and that's the difference between single family, two family. Townhomes would be in that category because they're built under the single family, two family code. Multifamily would be, we consider like a commercial property and would be in the 70%.
Okay, because I looked in the, those definitions aren't really in the LUMO. I was looking for those. Just Colleen, if you're listening, just something for the LUMO rewrite. Okay, so are they trying to meet a 50% standard or a 70% standard? Or a little bit of both? Just nodding your head. Okay, so I'm confused, and we need to figure that out. Can you, Michael, do you have any idea about what your market rate rents would be? Just ballpark.
I do, and I can tell you what they might be today, and I can tell you what they might be in the future. They are going to be similar to the rents. I think. Let me put it this way. Blue on Farrington, I think the rents are going to be similar to what they're currently charging. That's sort of what we're looking at in terms of a comparable market rate project.
And I'm not familiar with what they're charging there. Do you have it doesn't have to be the exact number, but I mean, are we talking 1,200, 1,500, 1,800 for a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom?
Let me pull up my pro forma. Yeah, I think the studios and ones are in that like 13 to 15 range, 1,500 a month range. And then the 2s and 3s are in the 21 to 2,300 a month range. That's what my pro forma says.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, other clarifying questions? Ms. Anderson, do you have your hand up before? Sorry, I can't remember.
I was going to ask about the rents, so I'm good.
Okay. Can I just ask, does your company actually build things other than apartments? Do you build townhomes and other types of units?
Yes, Toll Brothers Inc. Does. We build, large lot singles all the way to 2/2s that I think Ernie was talking about in the last presentation. So we have a range of housing, condominiums. We build housing for sort of all walks of life. My division just builds rental apartments.
Okay. All right. So we'll put this out for public comment. If you are wishing to comment on this concept plan, we'd love to hear from you. You can use the raise your hand function or the *9 if you're by phone. Would like to hear any comments that we have from the public.
We have Ed Harrison signed up.
Welcome.
Okay, should be on. Thank you. I wasn't going to say nearly as much as I'd like to now that I've heard it. Just a point to you to start with is all these projects tonight have been in Durham County, as it turns out, where I live and where I ran for council from. If they all fill up based on the number of bedrooms that I can get out of just this one, the population of Chapel residents in Durham County will probably triple, maybe quadruple at this rate. This is so many bedrooms coming into areas that don't have them right now. Less so on the south side, but certainly on the west side. And this one is on Barbie Chapel Road, a road that is luckier than Pope Road, but it is still a connector from Cary to UNC. It's a shortcut that a whole lot of people use, which we didn't know until people who live there started complaining about it. And you had a traffic engineer for years who drove that way too. But it's really, you're looking at overloading a system that is getting close to breaking. 54 is gonna fill up again as it did before the plague years. Barbie Chapel Road will be a really problematical intersection. And you need to start counting how many people are going to be moving in here. And this is your first chance you have. I don't think you had the hearing on Hillmont yet. also just, it's not my place to mention attitude, but you all know this, but this is one case you really need to remember, that a rezoning is not required for any application. It's a rezoning. And you don't have to accept it the way it is. It's very likely going to be conditional use because that's what they are now. And I hope some of you express some of the conditions that can be put on this project when it comes back. I don't understand conditional zoning as well as you do because I didn't do as many projects that way, but that's something you really need to be conscious of. Do I have any time left? Okay, not much.
43 seconds. You have 43.
All right, well, so that's basically what I'm saying, but just you've looked at nothing but Durham County projects tonight, and you're going to triple the population, and there isn't a whole lot of room for error here as you proceed with these projects. And I hope there's coordination between this and Hillmont, because there certainly needs to be. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your hard work tonight.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this concept plan? All right. So now I'll bring it back to council and I won't repeat myself, but share with you, to keep this at high level, to talk about the main concerns you have or the things you really like. You've heard from council members, they want to see that coordination with the other project, because it doesn't make any sense to have two separate projects that back up along here. That's short and sweet. We had a David Loby presentation on this area before, just to let other council members know, and he talked more about the middle housing being in this section of town and the opportunities to weave that into our community. And he brought I know performers are different right now because of the industry, but talked about this would be a great opportunity here to incorporate that middle housing component in this area of town, which is along a transit corridor, but does need better pedestrian or multimodal access as well. So, and did talk about that it would be very hard to have commercial in this site with the other commercial opportunities just down at Meadowmont and up at the plaza up the road. But those were the recommendations from that report. And I'm sure the staff could send it to those of you who haven't seen that when he did that report for us. It's been at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. So share that with you. All right. So we'll go with Mr. Parker, then Ms. Ryan. You're muted, Michael.
Yeah, Amy had her hand up first.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So thanks for coming. I saw this also at the Stormwater Board where they had a robust discussion about what's going on. We do need to clarify the impervious rules. So staff, when we come back, if we can have a clearer idea of what that is. The impervious rules, it's always interesting listening to the Stormwater Board because they really understand what's going on. And the impervious rules are in place to help protect our water quality, especially on this site. This goes right to Jordan water. And I know you guys will remember that we recently had a presentation from OWASA talking about how that Jordan Lake water will fit into our future drinking water plan. So it's really important that we make sure that we're protecting that as we move forward with development. So I do hope that you work with Hillmont. Again, we're talking about creating complete communities. If you guys can partner on more than just road connections or sharing a dog park, if you can kind of coordinate substantially, I think that would be great. If you manage to do that, then I think you can come back and make an argument about more impervious on you because you had a trade-off with them. Again, if we see, significant partnering, not just, well, they have RCD, so I'm going to count that towards my quota. That's not really a compelling argument for me. We've never done it, but I don't know why we couldn't consider if somebody wants more impervious in one place, if they were willing to preserve land somewhere else for impervious. Just throwing that out there as an idea. So again, you sat through the previous presentation, so I won't repeat all that, but I think a lot of the comments that we made there apply here as well about complete communities and the kind of connectivity and amenity space and real neighborhoods that we're looking for. I do think right now, because of your complete surface parking and because of you're about twice as dense as the last project we saw. I think because of that, because you're all surface parked, I don't know, maybe it was Mr. Parker who had raised the issue of buildings in a sea of parking, which is what I'm seeing now. I know you have green space, but it's not, I think it's falling short here. So, so I'd really, if and when you come back, would hope to see that improved and a really more complete community begun here. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Parker, followed by
somebody.
Definitely.
I'll echo what Amy, Councilmember Ryan just said. You know, we need more than just coordination. I mean, coordination means you don't fall on each other. I mean, we really need to think about how these two fit together. You know, looking at the two, they're very different, butting up right against each other. And so I think it needs real planning, not just coordination, number one. Number two, I noted the town's urban designer comments, and I wholeheartedly agree with all of them. I think he captured most of what my concerns are, particularly, again, it's a parking lot. You can say what you can call it bucolic, but I haven't seen a lot, but it's a parking lot. And it needs a streetscape. And I think it needs to really look at your massing. Again, I know that you haven't done the architecture yet, but you talk about farmhouses, precedent images. I haven't seen a lot of 5-story farmhouses. So I think there's, some interesting use of visuals there to try to, present something that really isn't. But mainly, I think it's the joint planning. It's, looking at reducing parking, underbuilding parking, underground parking, but getting away, and that obviously helps address the impervious surface issues, and creating a sense of place, which to me, I don't see right now. It just looks like buildings sort of strewn around the site with, some sidewalks connecting them, but no real sense of place. So I think there's a lot of work to be done here.
I didn't know if folks wanted to add in any comments about affordable housing component here, just in general.
Not enough.
Okay.
My comment is that we'd like the affordable component to be more. I would love the market rate to be lower too. I mean, that's just $2,300 or $2,100 for a young family is just a whole lot of money. So,
yeah. All right, I have Ms. Miller-Frichy followed by Ms. Stegman.
Yeah, I'm not going to mince my words here. I'm really struggling to find anything that I like about this project. And it really is, as Councilmember Ryan stated, buildings in a sea of parking. That's what's going on here for me. And granted, it's flat land, it's dense, but that doesn't have to translate into more impervious surfaces. But that's what's happening here because there isn't the consideration of building parking underneath. And I'm really frustrated when concept plans come before council and they're not hitting that 15% for affordable housing, because I'm sure our staff is having that conversation with our applicants. And so would really like to not have to go back and have the conversation, but show up having had the conversation and getting us at that 15%. That's really important. We are in an affordable housing crisis right now. And so we need y'all's help to help us get to where we need. I know your numbers have to add up and all that good stuff, but let's have that conversation. Not sure if this, really needs to be all apartment types. Would be interested in seeing what you all are thinking in terms of other housing types other than just apartments. So I'll stop there.
Okay, I have Ms. Stegman followed by Ms. Berry. Then Mr.
Yeah, I will be very brief. I just wanted to second what Councilmember Parker said and also what Councilmember Miller-Frichy said. I agree with both of their comments wholeheartedly. And we'll just add that I would also like you to consider a mix of of housing types and not just the monolith that it is currently. Thanks.
Okay, Ms. Berry, then Mr. Searing.
Thanks. Can you remind me, for some reason, I looked at those numbers just as you were about to switch that frame, what the percentage is that you proposed for the affordable housing? You had broken it out, and I'm just curious what you presented.
Yeah, and I apologize to Ms. Miller. We haven't spoken to staff on the affordable housing piece yet, and that's our fault. Before coming in front of you, we'll get on that as soon as we can. We proposed 10% split between half of those would be at 80% AMI, and half of those would be at 65% AMI.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. I needed that. So I do agree. I do want to underscore what my colleagues have said, and I would like to see more units that are affordable to those AMIs. And that is staggering, that 75% impervious surface, even with your neighboring development that's not yours, that is another's. That is really hard for us to accept, even if it is 70% that we're considering. And that's to save you, as I understand it, Michael, that's to save you money, to reduce your cost. And yet that is not demonstrated as much in the cost. It might be for this market, but when I think of the population that you opened with, that you want to target, which are the new professionals, the young professionals, this is rather steep. The cost of living is going up, but the salaries are not. And so I think that this will be a big challenge for folks. And so I'm not seeing a win here for the town and the people that we're serving, not for increased housing. Yes, you're bringing housing, but not for the folks that you're purporting to provide it for. So those are my reactions this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Searing, followed by Mr. Wynn, then Ms. Anderson.
I'll be pretty quick. So first of all, I mean, minor point, but as a former board member of the farm and whose kids grew up at the farm, I don't really see the connection between your development and the farm. So not a great analogy, in my opinion. More importantly, I looked up the blue on Farrington rents while we were speaking earlier, and the 2-bedroom goes from $2,600 to about $4,000 a month. So those are the rents that you're comparing to. So I think that's high. I would rather see stuff that, townhomes and stuff that people can buy. Again, here we are, another hour, another very large apartment project that we're considering. It's big, and it's big when you look at those buildings are very big when you compare to what is surrounding them. And know your perspective, that had you comparing to the hotel, I think was quite misleading. And you've got Meadowmont Apartments, Morgan Apartments, which are nearby, which are both 3 stories. Right across the street, you've got Summerwalk Circle, which is condos, which are 2 stories. And then you've got Little John Road, which is single family on the other side of Hillmont. So having and Friday Center, by the way, is 2 stories. So having a 5-story apartment buildings on Barbie Chapel, I think is just very, very large. So I'm not very excited about this. And I agree with some of my colleagues' comments about a parking lot and the impervious surface. And I think it needs a lot of work. So.
Okay. Mr. Wynn, then Ms. Anderson.
I'll put my comments in the chat. I could read them if you want.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'll echo sentiments of my colleagues. Different housing types, significantly less surface parking, definitely an increase in that affordability. That was pretty disappointing. I'm not as opposed to the density, but I just need a better project.
Okay. Ms. Anderson.
I think I don't have a lot else to add, just that it's really important to coordinate with Hillmont. Please do think about how this could be more of a complete community. I think the surface parking is really getting your impervious very high. And I like the idea of smaller units and different types of units. Thanks.
Okay. I'll add my comments and then try to sum up some of these things. I think you're hearing from almost all of us that we would like to see something different than a sea of parking amongst big buildings. I, for one, would like to see a mix of housing. Like I said, we had the report back about this is a great place for some middle income, middle housing type of project here. I disagree with you that this is an urban area. I think it's sort of a not quite urban, not quite suburban out of this part of town.
That's right.
And that whole area over there is mostly, as you just heard, 2- and 3-story buildings or 1-story. There's a lot of, there's a whole nother senior residential project across and down the street a little bit where they're connected, but they're all 1-story, and they have a great sense of community there too, is their middle gathering space and things going on. So designing a sense of community that is a mix of people, not just all people who can afford $2,500 to $4,000 a month rent. We want to see some differences there. Definitely want to stress the planning and working together with Hillmont. I think there can be some good sharing of that benefits you both, and it benefits the town better. So I strongly have a hard time with that amount of impervious surface. And you know, as you saw in the earlier project, they got creative with thinking about different kinds of things. And there are ways to be creative on this flat piece of land in a really good transit location. So I think you have some opportunity here that you haven't capitalized on. The affordable housing component, I understand when we take less units if they're at lower AMI, but you kind of missed the mark on both of that. We were, you know, if the units are coming in at 30% AMI or 60, we're willing to take less. And there's a chart that other ones have done where the percentages change the numbers of units, but you need to work with our staff and the housing board on that a little more tightly. So I think I heard similar comments from almost all of you that you'd like to see something different come back, that this is not quite where we need to be. You want to see that working together and planning together. Our urban designer gave you some good input. You've heard from that too about streetscape and visual entranceway. And you've heard lots of things. Is there anything else you need to hear from us to help you in your decision-making process?
No, I don't think so. I think this has all been very helpful and sort of satisfies the purpose of the hearing. I appreciate your time, and I know it's valuable. So thank you so much. And you know, hopefully we'll be able to continue and see something happen here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'll move that we transmit the comments.
Okay, the move by Ms. Berry.
I'll second.
Anderson, who was in there. Okay. Roll call vote, please. Ms. Stegman.
Aye.
Ms. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Berry.
Aye.
Mr. Nguyen. Ms. Miller-Fushi.
Aye.
Mr. Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Ryan.
Aye.
Mr. Searing.
Aye.
And the mayor says aye as well, so that's unanimous. Next up, we have the appointments to our advisory boards. And again, I want to say thank you to everyone who applies and wants to be a part. If you didn't get selected this evening, please don't give up hope. We do have different opportunities still coming available. There's always a rotating part to this as well. So we encourage you to apply if you haven't applied, and apply to different boards, but to check out where those openings are, that would be great. And I will read off who we have here. So give me just a minute because I didn't get to print this, so I have to read it to you. Okay, here we go. The council appointed Whitney St. Charles and Jim Fine to the town appointed seats on the Chapel Hill Downtown Partnership. It's a friendly reminder, I am only an advisory committee member. The council appointed Judy Gathens Arneson and Anthony Hanage and Michelle Stewart to the Environmental Stewardship Advisory Board. The council reappointed Julia Cunningham and Alex McKay and appointed Betsy Burke and Cameron Sutton to the Justice and Action Committee. The council appointed David Gorlick to the Orange Water and Sewer Board of Directors. And the council appointed Wesley McMahon to the Planning Commission. And we still have openings on the Planning Commission and some other boards as well, especially our Board of Adjustment, which is a great way to learn about things going on in town and be part of the learning process and provide a valuable service for our community. So we need a lot of people there, and I don't believe a lot of experience is a requirement on that one. We just need people who are willing to listen and weigh the facts and move forward. So that being said, I want to reiterate our thank you to our staff who've all worked really, really hard. This is our last regular council meeting. We do have a special meeting next week, which our staff are still working hard on. And I encourage everyone to respect the downtime that we all look forward to as we move through the summer season and come back together in late August. But thank you all. Now, I will say to the public, though, we still are working, taking comments, looking at things, planning for the future. And you are welcome to communicate with us in whatever manner works best for you. So unless there's anything else, that means our meeting is adjourned this evening. And this is the earliest we've ever gotten on the last meeting of the year. Mr. Jones, did you have anything to share with us?
No, ma'am.
Just waving by. Ta-ta. All right. So the meeting's officially adjourned this
Good night,
evening.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.